Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another fantastic double feature here for Faceit Fridays. It has been a pretty fun week so far, a chaotic one, as always, when we're doing this stuff extra run, but we got ourselves a couple of fantastic games here today, but as always, we are starting things out in South America. It's a game between Fallen Eclipse and Factor X, and both of these teams definitely players we know on these squads, but Dextron, what these teams are looking for today is their first genuine win of the season.
Yeah, we'll talk about this every time here in South America. While you do look below us, you do see a victory there in those win columns for these teams. 11 teams in Masters region here in South America means every team gets an automatic bye, and Faceit just gives you an automatic win for that reason. So one of these teams will leave here tonight with, like you said, Hunter, their first legitimate win of the season. And both these teams, I think, are just looking to right the ship here so far. We saw Fallen Eclipse on Wednesday go up against Piso Sour, and it was rough for Fallen Eclipse, but granted, they were going up against maybe the best team in the region at the moment there. Factor X haven't found the winning column just yet. Made some changes to their roster. 2 players got added of Starry Night and Fizzy to their roster here. So they're looking to try to change it up a little bit early on here, hoping that leads to some success almost immediately.
Yeah, and I don't mind. You make those quick adjustments. You decide, hey, this is the better route to go down. It simply is what it is. Trying to remember, because I was going to do some Starry Night lookage earlier on. But they mainly participate in things like calling all heroes. That's what I feel like most known for in terms of the last couple of years. So we'll see how things go, because it's obviously a really good roster to be pairing up with. I think there are some players that have shown they have really big potential, and I'm excited to see what they can do. But we're starting to pick things out on this first map coming out here, as Lijiang Tower is going to be to get us started, which thus far has kind of become the norm outside of those first couple of games.
Yeah, outside those first couple games where Busan was still everyone's go-to, then they all realized, oh wait, Lijiang's in the map pool. We're defaulting to that one every time, which is, again, not the biggest shock. It's everyone's probably favorite control map, or at least most scrim, so a lot of teams feel comfortable on it. And we always say the same kind of spiel every time we see it. It is an all-rounders map. You can play any kind of composition on this map that you want. If you truly believe your team can make it successful on this map, you can run it here. Poke, rush, brawl, dive, anything in between. If you want to do something completely wacky, yeah, it could work on this map. However, well, Fallen Eclipse does not want to see the Vendetta this map around, so does that mean a Zarya ban coming out here from Factor X? We've seen that in the past where Vendetta gets banned out and the other team just says, you know what, we're not even going to worry about the Zarya as well. Let's just get rid of that as well.
Honestly, it's a decent go-to. Again, the Zarya still is a big threat, even if the Vendetta doesn't exist, and vice versa is very much the case as well. So I wouldn't blame that particular pick right there. But you know, with Lijiang Tower, you know that there might be a lot of brawl-like aspects, so maybe you decide to get rid of something like the Kiri, maybe the Baptiste. Maybe you opt to get rid of a good brawl tank as well that you simply don't want to deal with, or a tank that simply goes against the style you wish to play. There's a lot of routes that you can take this thing. We'll see what comes to form as Fallen Eclipse. Last time we watched them, of course, we know Saxonale and Eli over there on that bench. Saxonale did come in to play tank on that third map, as Ramatra is going to be your second ban.
And I think that kind of tells you almost right away what these teams kind of want to play. Either they're going to be sticking with that Diva that we have seen a lot of people say is the strongest tank right now in the game, or still stick with the Zarya here, which definitely does still find a lot of value. Even without the Vendetta, you just replace that with something like a Genji, something like a Tracer. Heroes that we know that both these teams have really good players for, and that Zarya can still find a lot of value here early on.
Yeah, it can find a ton of value, so we'll see how this ends up going down when we get into this game, as we're just waiting on one more before we come in. I would say when it comes to Vendettas that we've seen a lot in recent time, I feel like one of the first one that comes to mind, personally for me, is Volition. Volition played a lot during the tryouts we had before with Team Peru, has played it in previous instances with Factor X as well. I know Vendetta hasn't been out for the longest time now, but there have been a lot of instances, but Volition has shown what they've been able to do in many other instances, and I am curious to see how they're going to work together with Fizzy and Starry Night, who joining this roster very much are starting as well.
Yeah, I mean, immediately put into the starting lineup here. There still is one sub for Factor X of Atreta on the bench here. I forget what role they play, but actually, no, that's their coach. So actually, Factor X doesn't have a sub here. Atreta, I guess, technically could come in as an emergency sub. I think that's the case with coaches if no one else is available. But we do talk about what we see from the other side as well. Okay. But we have the subs on the other side. You already talked about Saxton Hale being one of them. However, one of the other ones that we talked about a lot on Wednesday, but never saw, Eli, we're going to see them coming in almost immediately. And they're that flex DPS that we saw for Chile throughout the entirety of the Conference Cups. And they looked like one of the best flex DPSs in that entire tournament right there. They will be starting here tonight for Fallen Eclipse here, which again, I think they would have been a big benefit there to that team on Wednesday up against Pisco Sour. Again, it was going to be a tough matchup for them anyway, but got to get some play time for everyone in there. Eli, though, will get the start here tonight. Saxton Hale, apparently dead, but not going to be getting the start.
No, not going to be getting the start. We'll see. There are obviously, I think, specific maps that fall to the that really fall to what Saxton Hale can do. Because while we knew them a lot as a DPS before, when we saw in some of the more recent trials and the last matchup as well, they are on that tank. So we'll see what that kind of provides moving forward. It's just support not DPS supports our people too. That's crazy.
I think we're talking about a completely different game here right now, but
I think we might be. Yeah, I feel like yeah. There it is.
There it is. Thank you, DM, for that.
I
don't think anyone wants to play that one, but I mean, still.
Oh,
jeez. The chat's going very fast for me. But I mean, again, Hunter, let's kind of just set the stage here again. Both these teams haven't won their first game of the regular season yet. Yes, we know records do say they have one game, but have won a game. That's the automatic buy, gives them a win. Looks like Volition in the lobby now, so we'll be going in here momentarily. But Hunter, let's set the stage here again. Both these teams, this could be a win that, if they win this series tonight, really could write the season for these teams very early on, because with only 11 teams in the South American region, every loss becomes more and more vital that you have to start playing your best, considering the three playoff teams last season, or the bottom three playoff teams last season, only had 2 losses.
Yeah, it was a very, very small margin for error that everyone's going to have to kind of deal with in their own right. And it's bigger, obviously, for Factor X, who have already played 3 games and have lost 3 games. It's a really rough start for them. It doesn't mean that it's over, though. If you go in here, pick up a big win, oh my god, yeah, sure, I'll do that. It's a scenario where they can very much still bounce back, because while I do think there is 2 top teams right now, I think outside of those tops 2, I still think it's very much an open field.
It very much is, and that's going to be the fun thing. That we know there's a lot of good teams with a lot of good players, but you need to have them gel here at some point. Individual talents can carry you a decent amount, but once it gets to the playoffs, those individual talents will not be able to carry you much further than that. However, let's focus in now on this game here. We're going to be seeing Factor X come out here with the Domina, and it's going to be Fallen Eclipse coming out here with that D.Va instead. We talked about seeing the D.Va here a little bit. One of the strongest tanks in the game, going up against maybe what a lot of people would consider the next strongest tank in that Domina here. But already you are just seeing Eclipse get set up here on point.
Yeah, you sure are, and you're trying to rally for a little bit of space here. DM is going to continuously force Empathy around, who has to consistently kind of go on the run, maintain a safe area, because if you're the D.Va, you can be burnt down relatively easily. I think Domina is one of those tanks that is really good at being able to do so, but DM still has to kind of manage that aggression, manage that space, and they're doing so very well early on in here, because even with Volition down, Empathy is just trying to focus on survival, staying alive as long as humanly possible, and right now, doing a great job, but that slow build-up is going to cost them right here, because even with them lasting such a long time, Dex, this feels like an inevitability, but Eli is more than happy to keep them in it thus far, as there's a Panopticon ready to go for DM.
And it's already coming out right there on Lamont, and you're probably going to see him die here. Actually, not even for the Panopticon. However, Eli's the only reason I think that point was not captured a little bit sooner there by Factor X. They did a good job there. 3 picks in that first fight, and hell, you had the first person that died to Eli coming back in to rejoin them, and Eli still very much alive, and you already got rid of that Panopticon here. So this is a good opportunity for Fallen Eclipse to come back in very, very quickly, especially with Empathy going over to this Hazard instead. They want to be able to really start to out-pressure this Domina, because that's all that team has been doing. And again, Eli finding a pick.
Yeah, Volition's got rid of 2. Eli is doing a little bit of damage on the outside as well. It might come down to this 1v1 between the 2. Both of them are going to have the pulse bombs available. Lunami still indeed has that sound barrier right, but gets taken off the edge, and now Empathy's in on that. Hazard trying to run some bodies down, but there's just no care. Pulse bomb doesn't stick either. DM is close to going down, but the care is back, so there's nothing that Eli can do.
Eli, again, still hasn't died. They're playing very aggressive, which was what we saw them do with Team Chile in those conference cups. However, they're just not being punished right now. I mean, you're looking over at Volition, you're looking at Fizzy trying to have one of them be able to shut them down, but now you're starting to see Factor X take all the space. Beat now coming out here from Lumini as Eclipse wants to get something going here fast.
Yeah, Fizzy's getting a little bit of pressure, has the overclock ready. Empathy's in a weird spot, gonna be burnt out extremely quickly, and again, Factor is going to be moving forward, trying to find a couple more shots. Fizzy will find the good one on Lamont. At 70% left, and all you got to your name is the Kitsune Rush.
Yeah, the Kitsune Rush, not that far away from a downpour if you kind of slow play a fight, but look over at the other side. DM, another Panopticon online, and the Orbital Ray as well. You're already looking at that positioning coming out here now from Factor X. They're playing up the space. That Orbital Ray might just mostly be used to keep DM alive here as they are pushing up very, very far.
That Panopticon thrown out, catches onto multiple members, and that's multiple members dead. But you got to make the mad dash back to the point. They're trying to find the flip back there. They will not get it by a millisecond. And unfortunately, you'll get some overtime, but it doesn't mean a thing. It's going to be 100-0 to get things started for Factor X, and that is as good of a start as you could possibly hope for.
Honestly, yeah, it's a great start for everything there. I mean, give it up to DM for being able to stay alive through a lot of it there for them. I mean, again, this is a team that has struggled so far. It seems like their 2 new players coming in, Volition and Fizzy, that DPS line for them have come in and made a big difference, but DM on this dominance providing so much pressure up against anything that Fallen Eclipse is running, whether it be Empathy on the Diva or Empathy on the Hazard. They really struggle to find anything there. However, the one performance I really want to highlight there in that first map was Eli. I mean, they were doing everything. You have to remember, before the first point was even capped there, Eli had already found 3 picks. They were doing so much. Their team just was not able to capitalize on it there. And their first death only came towards the very end, the final fight there in that first point.
Yeah, so it'll be fascinating to see where we go from here. We see the addition of the Pharah brought in from Volition as Fizzy already gets the better of Lamont, which is, for me, insane. We know what Lamont is certainly capable of as Empathy is thrown to the outside. This first one is already done and dusted. Volition with a nice shot onto Eli as well to secure them this point.
Yeah, and right now, I mean, Volition is playing a very dangerous game because, like you said, we know how good of a hit scan player that Lamont is, especially playing Soch. However, you're seeing Volition actually play very cautiously with it as DM going to be able to find Vicious out here, a huge tag, but look at where DM is, already taking all that space right back and forcing Factor, or my bad, Fallen Eclipse in the spots where they're really hoping that it's Empathy that builds it, but you're just losing your supports.
Yeah, you're not even getting out the gate to really take a fight. You're pushing inside the opening area of the defenders, and yeah, this is kind of rough right now.
Vicious barely able to stay alive where they almost got booped off the map by Volition, but look at the space just being taken here by Factor X. This is a team that, even with their struggles early on, they seem like a team that has all the confidence in the world here, but Fallen Eclipse needs a pick. However, that's not the pick you're looking for.
Oh, it is not. Direct onto Eli as Eli wants to make space over on this Echo now. Unfortunately, it's already just not getting a whole lot of inherent value. You're able to sit so far back with everybody that is over on the side of Factor X to the point it's like they don't have to take aggression if they don't need to, but if they have the opportunity and they have the numbers, they're going to every single time.
Yeah, absolutely. But this is the first time that I think Fallen Eclipse has actually been able to just kind of get set up here, as it's going to be a straight Empathy going to the point while everyone else going through White Room other than Lumini. Eli, though, finally getting able to shut down that far. This is the best opportunity here for Fallen Eclipse to get something going.
Yep, definitely a big opportunity here to work with right now. DM is going to have a Panopticon ready to go, but Empathy obviously is able to potentially eat it as Furiak is barely alive right now, is struggling to stay in it. Somehow it has remained alive this entire time as Panopticon thrown out. Doesn't end up getting a whole lot by the looks of things, but you manage to finish off Eli. You knock Empathy so close to getting out of that mech. And with 85% on the board, no bomb to remech, they're going to be cleared out. And this is looking like it's going to be a 200-0.
It really does here, and I don't think anyone's going to be able to get a touch here if you're Fallen Eclipse. I mean, Lumini going to try to get there, mistimes the jump with some help from Volition.
Yeah, and indeed, there it is. It's going to be a 200-0 For Factor X to get things started right here, this is looking a lot like the Factor X that we used to know as they go out here and looking at the stats that are on the screen right now. The most deaths of anybody was a 3-way tie with just 2.
Coalition, Busy, and Starry Night all had 2. DM didn't even have a single death right there. 22-0, almost 10,000 damage. I mean, we talk about how good the Dominant is, just being able to keep space and kind of be able to maintain it. But there are so many times that DM should have died. Great plays coming out there from that support line for Factor X, making sure that they were able to keep themselves up. And at the same time, you have to give that DPS line a lot of credit as well. You would see DM be very, very low, maybe no support around them in time to really keep them up. That DPS line was really helping DM stay alive in those situations. You look over at the other side though for Fallen Eclipse, very much a struggle there. Eli only ended that map with 6 elims, and they had 4 in that first fight on Control Center. So very much a struggle for them throughout the rest of that map there. But still, you're looking at the tank. Empathy needs to do a little bit more to kind of shut down DM. That space was being taken a little bit too easily there on that Dominant, especially when they were playing D.Va and then going over to the Hazard back to the D.Va. It seemed like they wanted to play up tempo, but that tempo was just never really there because of early picks coming out from Fallen or Factor X.
Yeah, that's certainly what happened. And now you need the kind of instant adjustment right here. And I like the route Fallen Eclipse is trying to go down. You ban out the Domina. You still have Techius to a potentially more brawling map like Surafasa. That does have a lot of potential for different things. But I think realistically, it's the correct route to go down here. I think the Domino was one of the main benefactors, and to be fair, a map like this, you know you're going to have to deal with some kind of shenanigans from Faceit and Diem and everyone else, but shutting down the Domino, I think, is the most important thing as of this moment.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what Fallen Eclipse does here in terms of subs. Do they bring mids in? Do they bring Saxon Hale in? Do they bring Saxon Hale in as a DPS player, or do they bring him in as a tank? Probably most likely a tank, because they would be filling that role that Eli has been playing that first map. And I thought Eli was maybe one of the best players for Fallen Eclipse, even with a little bit of a struggle that second point. It's going to be really interesting to see here, especially as, you know, lineups are taking a little bit here to be finalized. But still, we talked about the importance of this game for both these teams here, and Factor X, with these 2 new players coming in, already look like a much different team than what we kind of saw in those first couple games for them.
Yeah, definitely so. So we'll see how the adjustment continues on as the Lucio gets banned out, so taking away a bit of that speed factor. Obviously not impossible to play with a bunch of speed. Obviously, Juno is very much still available, but you might see some teams fall back into the things, maybe like a Wuyong, maybe like an Alari. There's definitely plenty of options to where it's like, we don't have to play fast, but if you wanted to, the biggest benefactor is certainly gone from that equation.
Yeah, absolutely. But you also have to remember this. I don't think Factor X played a Lucio that first map. They stuck with the Juno throughout the entirety of it. So this is a good ban for them, because we did see Lucio come out there from Fallen Eclipse. So they're okay with banning out the Lucio here. They probably weren't going to really go for it anyway. But the Domina is going to be a little bit more interesting, because what do you see them go to? Is it going to be a D.Va mirror? Is it going to see a Zarya? Okay, DM, I'll talk about you later. But you look over at the other side, and this is kind of what we expect to see. And like you said, you call it out. The Wu Yang coming out here from Lumini. We did see that. Or from, yeah, Lumini. We did see... I can't speak. Lunami coming out there. We saw that in the first map as well. They found some value on it, but not necessarily enough. Eli sticking with the Tracer is no big surprise, but DM going over to the Orisa. This is a punishable tank here. This is a very punishable tank right now for Factor X, and if you're Fallen Eclipse, you have to be able to kind of capitalize on it. However, Faceit and Starry Night on that support line could really, really keep this tank alive for a long, long time.
Yeah, genuinely could. You see DM out on that Risa. I think it's great as... Fizzy's not wasting any time at all. Lunami's already down. Empathy now has to kind of just play that defense back up a little bit. You see everyone kind of split up to different sides right now, and that's unfortunately what you kind of have to do in a scenario like this, where you don't really have the ability to be aggressive right now without some extra heals in there.
Yeah, and again, it seemed like there was a little bit of a miscommunication there from Fallen Eclipse into that first fight. I mean, it was immediately Empathy going straight to a point where everyone else was kind of still hanging around the outside, probably just expecting that Empathy was going to go in there and meet face-to-face with Factor X. Instead, it was Factor X that went outside and, well, met the rest of Fallen Eclipse.
Yeah, and Eli Volition, both giving their own pressure. Faceit, though, is the one currently struggling to stay alive. Will be able to, at least for the moment, is going to fall, but it's going to help knock Empathy out of the mech to be able to do so. And the question is that trade worthwhile? We're going to find out, I think, extremely quickly here, as there's so many low bodies. Empathy is trying to hang on to that mech. Will not be able to retain it, though. Lamont being forced around. Everyone's falling one at a time. DM helping get rid of them. Finishes off 3 to get this fight taken care of.
I mean, if you carry it over from last map, DM on a 25-player kill streak at the moment, still have yet to die here. And this already kind of seems like this first point is going to be going over the way of Factor X here. Lamont now making a swap over to the Cassidy. I like that one a little bit better, especially going up against something like this Orisa. If you get close, you can just fan the hammer until you get that silver bullet perk, which could be very, very strong against this. But still, you're looking for a capitalization here. You got rid of Faceit pretty early on that last fight, but the problem was you lost Empathy's mech immediately after.
Yeah, you 100% did it. Now you're trying to get something online, Lamont. Big pick over onto Starry Night to put yourself in a good position, and already 2 on display. Faceit is just having to rush over onto the point as Lamont gets their 3rd, gets their 4th, and now DM gets finished off by Eli. Ace stolen away, but that right there is the Lamont that we know so well.
Yeah, and it's great to see them have that kind of play right there. We know that they could do that time after time again, but it seemed like in those first 2 series that we saw them, especially the one on Wednesday, they struggled mightily. First map was a struggle for them as well, but going over to this Cassidy seems to be their comfort spot here. And now, I mean, this is what we were looking for Fallen Eclipse, just to get them, have themselves settle into this map, settle into this series a little bit. I think that fight right there did, especially with the ultimates they have coming up here and how they're already kind of playing the space. They could really just benefit from maybe just kiting out a couple ultimates.
Yeah, Faceit not wasting a whole lot of time. Eli gets finished off. That's rough. Volition follows up. The question is, how much are you willing to put into this one to make it happen? And Volition decides, we don't need anything more. We got this. We're going to lock things in. DM, though, is simply going to shut down any possibility, as Empathy is going to have to take the L over on the point. Going to save the bomb for another time, as first point going to go over to Factor X. But Fallen Eclipse already making some good adjustments.
Yeah, I mean, Fallen Eclipse, like I said, they were just trying to get a foothold in this map and in this series. I think they were able to do it there with that fight win, but now they need to be able to come back. You still have 3 ultimates online, and you got 3 ultimates out there from Factor X that last fight, so you're in a good spot here. This title blast, though, from Lunami has to be used here onto the right person. Either you give it over to Empathy or you give it over to Eli. Just someone that's going to be the initiator here, or just someone who's going to be looking to get into that back line.
Yep, exactly. We'll see what goes down, though, as we see Eli going aggressive. Is going to try to find a stun. Finds it. Faceit, though, isn't low enough to go down. Lunami, again, going to be the first one to go down. And now Eli has to kind of hit the back line, hoping to find somebody. Unfortunately, such person will not be found with Empathy out of the mech. Just has to take the reset. And again, that's a big cleanup coming through for Factor X, only having to use the rally to stay in it.
Yeah, and that title blast from Lunami, almost, especially thrown on Eli, almost actually got rid of Faceit there, which would have been a huge thing, because they did pop rally before that title blast went off. That would have been a huge pick early on, probably would have carried Fallen Eclipse throughout that entire fight, but still, you have Deadeye, you have Bomb ready to go. However, you're walking into maybe a good ultimate to shut down both those here with that Orbital Ray, especially if we see Factor X want to play aggressively here, which we do know them to kind of want to play aggressively at times. As really, I feel like that's just normal now. You don't normally see teams just play slow, but Deadeye already out from Lamont.
Yeah, finds what you need over on Fizzy, but DM has every cooldown available. Is starting to run down body after body, but really it is only one right now. Empathy does have a bomb ready to do. The question is there a remake in play? The answer is indeed yes, but do you have the team to follow up and still win this one? With 75%, I'm starting to think the answer is no.
I'm starting to think it's no as well. I mean, you could get one final touch, but you could be really sacrificing yourselves here. It just looks like we're going to see them immediately fall back, give up this point, and they're really banking that it's going to be onto the opposite side of the map and not just behind the point right now. We'll see where it's going to be here in a moment. And it seems
yeah, it is.
Actually, no, it is. They they took the gamble and didn't go their way, and it's just gonna be all the benefit of Factor X here, who's immediately just gonna be able to kind of fall back, play safe here, especially with them coming up the 3 ultimates. And yeah, you have the Pulse One and the Consumer Rush about to be online here for Fallen Eclipse. It's gonna be very difficult for them as they still have struggled to really find anything early on here outside of the one pop-off play or fight from Lamont, essentially.
I mean, that is essentially the case right now. So you are kind of hoping for Eli to find a good pulse bomb right here. You would love to hit like Faceit with it, or maybe Fizzy. Remember, there's no cleanse available, so if that hits, there's nothing stopping from taking down whoever is available, and it's Ray, it's in the corner. Fizzy is one, though, doesn't have any more care sitting by, so a chance to stay in this as there's a big stick coming through. DM taken care of. This will eventually go the way of Factor, well, I should say, Fallen Eclipse, as they're going to clean things up, only having to use the pulse bomb to do so.
Yeah, and again, it started off with Lamont finding one pick. You got rid of 2 ultimates from the other side with both the Pulse Bomb and the Terror Surge. I mean, that's exactly the perfect fight you were looking for there if you're Fallen Eclipse. Now you have a Consumer Rush ready to go. You're not that far away from Tidal Blast and Deadeye, so you're in a good spot here to kind of play a little bit slow here if you want, but you're going to see immediately that Factor X is going to want to be taking that space as DM already going straight after Empathy.
Yeah, Empathy going to run immediately. Eli, though, gets the early pick over on a Starry Night. And now Starry Night not going to be able to build up to anything, as we're seeing Empathy have to force their body on momentarily just to kind of hang in there, stay alive. That they're able to do for the moment being. DM forced into the corner, is slowly losing that health, but Fizzy is here to try to save the day with a little help here. Could be able to pull that off. It really is just Empathy and Eli over the point. No remake available for Empathy, so this should be an inevitability right here. Should be able to get at least 80%, though, as that is exactly what they'll get as Eli tries to get out of there alive.
And you'll take that fight there if you're honestly both teams. I mean, you got rid of Consumer Rush if you're Factor X, which you are happy about. You look over at Fallen Eclipse, you only use your Consumer Rush. You have Deadeye, you have Bomb, you have Tidal Blast. You're in a good spot here to you have to kind of play fast here now, because Faceit will have this rally ready to go right now. That's the only thing you really have to worry about early on, because once one ultimate goes out, you have to understand that Faceit is going to probably be responding with the rally of their own.
Yeah, and there's so many little bodies, by the way. It's a wonder how they haven't taken advantage of this play. Yes, Empathy's going to run forward. He's going to be able to barely stay alive. Bomb being thrown over on the point. It's not going to get a whole lot of anything, and everyone's back to full health. DM has the bodies ready, pulls in multiple of them. Clemens, unfortunately, not going to keep them alive. You get the momentary flip that comes through, and to be fair, that momentary flip is probably going to put them in the ideology and the space to be able to bring one more fight.
Yeah, the unfortunate part about the entire fight there for Fallen Eclipse, yeah, they got control of the point. However, Tidal Blast was invested on the Empathy to try to keep them in mech. At the moment they got that Tidal Blast, they got de-mech. So 2 ultimates were essentially wasted there for them. And Lamont's Deadeye, I believe, got canceled out by a nice shot from Fizzy here. You have Pulse Bomb ready to go here, and you're probably looking at Eli as being your touch, or Empathy swapping over to the Malga as your touch here, but someone has to get it. It will be Empathy, but now the rest of the team needs to be there.
Yeah, and Empathy just has no care that deep. Hellpulm has to be massive. It's going to catch over onto one. Lamont's there as well. This isn't over quite yet, but DM needs to find somebody to start running on as they manage to force another body on. It's just DM hanging around. Try as they might, they'll get one on the way out. It will not matter, though, as they're going to be able to clean things out. Overtime, gonna burn away as, hey, give credit right there. They're going to stay in this one and take the 3rd point.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, Factor X should be able to get set back up on the 3rd point here, or the 4th point, my bad. Again, here, before you even see really anything from Fallen Eclipse, but still, you look over at Fallen Eclipse. They needed that point. Just give them some confidence. This looked like a better map for them already, but they need to not be 3-0'd on this one. However, you're walking into 2 ultimates very early on here for Factor X. You have that the overclock coming out from Fizzy, and DM not that far away from yet another Terror Surge, which, so far, I think this map hunter, DM's been able to find at least one with it, but Volition shuts down Eli.
Yes, so quickly, and that's kind of worst case scenario here, to lose Eli this early, because it takes pressure off of Volition, who can just go in and do whatever they want to do. So 4th point going to be capped away here, and to be fair, DM and Fizzy both having their ults available is going to make this a really tough occurrence.
It really is. However, Lumini finding Volition out early on, that means you can start playing aggressively. Deadeye now out for Lamont as well, just trying to build some space. A nice spear from DM.
Yeah, but now DM's in such an exposed position, it's going to be on Fizzy to try to clutch up. Eventually, he's going to be shut down, and both these ults were used. It's not going to result in anything, though, as the last couple of members just going to force on kind of stalling things out. Lamont's more than happy to keep cleaning them up. Finishes up with like 3 or 4. Now, the bright side is you still get 46% for that whole exchange.
You still get 46%, but I just want to highlight Lamont here. Only player on their team with above 20 elims. Granted, everyone else on their team has at least 10. I mean, Lamont has been kind of carrying their team through some of these fights very early on. Eli has started to come alive here as well, but you're starting to see this Fallen Eclipse team, like I said, just settle down into the series. They're starting to take good fights. They're starting to throw out ultimates at the right time, and you're starting to get good angles being taken here, both by Eli starting to force some people out into spots they don't want to be, and Empathy being able to slow down a DM here.
Yeah, and you have an idea to go in here, try to burn out somebody. Fizzy gonna go through, but Eli cannot recover in time, so now DM can get a little bit of care. This becomes really winnable, but DM is barely able to hang on here. Bomb has to be used here by Empathy to make some space. DM goes down as a result of everything, and now we're at 70% and counting. You need to regroup fast if you're Factor X.
And you have to remember, if they just say, okay, hey, we're gonna go play for next point, well, the next point's actually in the side of a Fallen Eclipse. So you're not necessarily in a good spot here. You might just try to force touch here out from Volition, who does have Pulse Bomb. You look at Star Knight, not that far away from that Orbital Ray, but Lamont with the Deadeye, they're gonna be looking for that here very early on, especially as now DM gonna be mirroring the D.Va.
Yeah, and now you're looking at potentially using the Deadeye here. You trade out. It's a weird place to be in right now, as Empathy is going to get off the point momentarily. Is just so far separated from anybody else, has to kind of just back out and give it up. So it means realistically, you're just playing for one final fight.
Yeah, you're playing for one final fight here, if you are. Honestly, both teams, because by the time this fight ends, it's going to be in that area where you can say, hey, you might not get another touch here if you're Fallen Eclipse, and losing Eli early on is a disaster now. That's going to stagger them out into final fight territory for this point, and potentially the map, no matter what. And you look at what Factor X is going to have here. Orbital Ray and Overclock online for them. Deadeye and Consumer Rush going to be ready here for Fallen Eclipse. Granted, you could build up to a Pulse Bomb here very quickly if you're Eli, but you need someone to take that space here, as the Divas are kind of staring at each other. Lamont is looking for the opportunity to use that Deadeye, but they know that DM can really just eat it all away.
Yep, but you don't, now Starry Knight's down, you don't have the Orbital Ray anymore, and this fight's done and potentially dusted. With Faceit down as well, no support sitting by, the flip's gonna come through, and Fallen Eclipse is gonna force a fifth and final map, but guess what? They know exactly where it's at. They are gonna be in trouble with the, Orbital Ray still coming their way, but they've dragged themselves back into this one.
They dragged themselves back in this one. I think they dragged themselves back into this series, because after those first 2 points, it was looking kind of rough for them. I mean, I was almost ready to say, like, okay, looks like Factor X is going to go up 2-0 in this series. This could be pretty much a quick one here, unless we see some big changes come out from Fallen Eclipse. But you've seen those changes happen in real time. This team has that confidence, and they're about to have 4 ultimates ready to go here. Granted, same thing could be said here for Factor X, as they're about to have all 5. So, Hunter, this could be a pretty explosive fight.
Yeah, it will be. Lamont is down early, though, so this fight might just be done faster than one would have initially hoped. The biggest thing you can do is, if you're losing, just fall out on this point, make sure everyone dies on here, take as much time away as you possibly can. It's just Eli and Vicious still hanging around, as both will be finished off in time. And, hey, to be fair, you stalled out a while, but look at all those ultimates available there for Factor X.
Yeah, but you also have to look at it for Fallen Destiny. They used Pulse Bomb. They're still gonna have 3 coming in this one. Fizzy did use their Overclock. They still have 4. They're in such a good spot here to be able to just kind of hold, especially with the ultimates they do have. That Orbital Ray from Starry Night is really gonna force a lot of members of this Fallen Eclipse team to kind of have to play a little bit slower, have to play angles they don't necessarily want to play here. But still, you're looking for something early on here if you're Fallen Eclipse, and normally Lamont has been the person to bring you that early pick.
Yeah, and Volition barely kind of stays alive through that. Lamont finds the finish anyway, and Faceit is in there with the rally, surviving, but the survival is not going to last very long. They'll be cleared away. It's just DM who's going to die over on the point, and so far is doing a really good job of stalling things out. They'll eventually be burnt away, let it go to a crispy 69%.
Nice. But here's the thing in that fight. I mean, that was a big investment there by Fallen Eclipse. You got rid of the Tidal Blast, you got rid of the Deadeye. You look over at the other side, all they really invested was the rally. They still have Pulse Bomb. They still have that Orbital Ray, which I am saying is going to be a decider here for whatever fight they decide to use it. And DM has the remix. So does Empathy here. Eli does build up the Pulse Bomb, but you already look at the position here. It looks like Factor X just wants to go straight to the point, and they get rid of Vicious, not who you want to see fall first. And Empathy now rushing to get back to their team.
Yeah, you see everybody backing out immediately. They decide, hey, it's not worth it. We're not building up at this time. Pulse Bomb throws out. It hits the shield of Faceit, though, and now you need a quick regroup fast.
You need a quick regroup. However, I was going to say Lamont is in the back line. There's no way they're getting out alive here. Empathy not able to save them. They have that bomb here. They might have to utilize it just to make sure they can potentially keep themselves in this fight.
Yeah, and Empathy's not going to stay alive long enough for it to matter. Overtime's going to tick through. Unfortunately, overtime's not going to matter in a scenario like this. Just Eli hanging about, stalling for slightly longer, and fight back as hard as they could. It is still going to go over the way of Factor X from getting their one before things finish out. So Factor X go up 2-0 in this series, but Fallen Eclipse very much proving, hey, we're not out of this thing quite yet.
Oh, absolutely. But I'm looking at the stats for this map here. I mean, DM and Lamont dropped 30 bombs here. Both got over 30 kills. You look at the rest of the DPS line, or the DPS heroes for both these teams, over 20 kills. I mean, the person that had the least amount of elims in that lobby there was Faceit, the only person in single digits at 9. I mean, like I said, Fallen Eclipse, those first 2 points looked rough for you. Factor X looks like they still had your name every fight. However, that third point turned it around. You got some players to really start picking up some slack there, and I think you found your footing in the series. Yeah, you lost the map, your backs are against the wall, but you made Factor X, I think, blink there. You made them make some changes because that Orisa, while it was getting value, slowly started to get being out there by that diva there from Empathy. And you even saw the mirror come out right there. And I still don't think at the end of the day that you really saw DM be able to match it. It's just that their team had that big lead early on that all they had to do was just at least get halfway there, and that was going to be enough for them.
Yeah, definitely was. So we'll see how things go. We're keeping things, or I guess we should say we're letting things be long range here. Ivana is our selection. The Sojourn going to be banned out here from Fallen Eclipse. But down to mine, Sojourn just all around still a really good hero. Maybe this forces you down a different route. But remember, with the way the bans are set up now, that Vendetta Zarya is very much still able to come out here. I don't know DM's capabilities of playing up, but we know Volition can very much go in and play that Vendetta if needed be. But Havana's not exactly the ideal time and place for it.
It's really not. You look at this map, and you said it right out of the gate here. Long range, long sight lines, long range kind of map here. Poke is going to probably be the name of the game, whether it be the Domina that we saw DM kind of dominate the first map of Li Jiang with, or something like the Sigma, which we have seen teams kind of play on this map as well in the past. Especially, I think, on yesterday, we saw a team, actually Wednesday, we saw definitely a team play Havana. Whenever we saw a team play Havana, we saw that Domina v Sigma, and the Sigma ended up coming out on top of that one. However, you talk about the long sightlines, so even with Soj being banned out, you still have Ashe, you have Hanzo, you have Widow. Widow, this might be one of the only opportunities that Widow actually makes a decent amount of sense here for both sides, especially on the first and third points where those long sidelines really do benefit the hit scans. And I think we saw the Lamont wake up there in that last map, absolutely popping off. Like I said, one of the players to drop 30 elims at one there. And you still look over at the other side of Fizzy, who has quietly been having just as good or maybe even a little bit better of a series than Lamont so far.
I think that's worth pointing out. Lamont has had big pop-up moments, but Fizzy has been the one that's had a lot of consistency throughout the series. I think that's the difference we're looking at right now. As to whether that can change or not, I think it's a grand possibility. Again, we're going into a map where sightlines are going to be long. I think things are going to open up for Lamont a little bit more. We'll see how it kind of goes their way with an exchange like that. Right now, we're just waiting on lineups to finalize, as Mids and Saxonella are still very much over on the bench. I don't think this is the map I would pull in Saxonale. It's probably not the point for the Junker Queen style if the tank does go through. But yeah, you literally never know. Who knows? We saw this with the same situation they did last time, where they went down 2-0 against Pisco Sour, and they subbed in Saxonale to say, hey, we need something to change. Let's see what it can do. And it had its bright spots, I should say, but unfortunately just didn't work out.
And I love the ban coming out here now from Factor X. You have to go back to that first map where DM just really took over that entire map. Didn't die once. Had 22 elims on the Domina. Sigma gonna be the ban coming out here from Factor X. So if you're gonna play Poke, you're gonna have to play the Domina here, and it's gonna come down to potentially Saxon Hale, who is coming in here for Empathy this time around. So the Junker Queen style might be on the table. However, I think we have seen Saxon Hill in the past really play those Poke tanks here. So you might be looking at Poke v Poke, or you might really just be seeing this Fallen Eclipse team saying, hey, we're going to try something on this map. Maybe something a little bit different than what you expect. And then if it doesn't work, then we go back to what you kind of expected here a little bit. But I mean, you see Saxon Hale come in here. Empathy, I thought had a really good really good last up. I thought they were able to actually outperform DM there, even though DM did drop 32 elims. You got them to get off that Orisa, which I think was a big thing. But right now, if you're Fallen Eclipse, you need to keep that momentum up here. Much better performance in map 2 compared to map 1. You have to take the same kind of story for every fight. You have to find that first pick and then just collapse upon Factor X, because that's what really led them to winning, I think, the majority of all their fights that last map.
Yeah, I think that's pretty reasonable to throw out there. And I think Havana could very much enable them to be able to do. Saxon Hill is one of those players that feels like they're a little bit more in the territory of, hey, I like to be aggressive. I like to be up there playing everybody's face. That's the route I think Saxon Hill truly goes down as a player. And I think that'll feed into someone like Lamont and Eli, who so far have been trying to be aggressive throughout the series, that have found success trying to find a lot of this aggression. Obviously, that relates a little bit more to, things over on Surafasa and Lishong. But with the map that's open, I think you can definitely set them up for success here. The question really is, can Factor X continue doing what they're doing? Because up until that third point, we were like, man, this just might be Factor X all the way. But now, not so certain. And the question is, are they still certain that they're going to be able to shut this down as quickly as they once did?
Yeah, that's going to be the big question here. Are they going to be able to do that time after time again here? Looks like we got whatever player was struggling to get in. I don't know who it was because I covered my screen. But we're going to be heading into Havana here. Again, Soj being banned out, like I said, probably is leading us maybe to something like the Widow, like the Ashe, probably most likely going to be the Emre from these 2 hit scans of Fizzy and Lamont here, which I think we saw Fizzy play a little bit of that Emre map 1 and find a little bit more value on it compared to Lamont, but I think Lamont had a little bit of a struggle there. However, it will be Factor X attacking here first, so they're going to be the team that's going to be able to put down a good time here for immediately for Fallen Eclipse to have to respond to. But it's going to be, I have to imagine it's going to be poke coming out from both these teams. Okay, DM, do you. But Saxon Hale showing us that dominant, kind of like I expected, but look over at the double hit scan potentially coming out here from Fallen Eclipse. Eli, I was going to say, we saw Eli play a little bit of a hit scan in the Team Chile tryouts. They did serviceable on it, but probably not the place to be doing it here. The Genji, I think, fits him a little bit better.
Yeah, it'll be really fascinating to see how the Genji works out, because I don't know how, let's say honest, the entirety right now of Factor X is being with what they're going to do. They're hanging out on top, but I imagine DM is going to make the last second swap. But everything else staying the same honestly makes sense to me. Volition's probably going to find some kind of value over now on the Genji, which if you don't think about their venture, or I should say their vendetta, I definitely have their Genji coming to mind.
Yeah, but right now, you're looking at Lamont here on this Widow. You need to take these long sidelines. You need to be able to find a pick here early on. Because like I said, when you found those early picks here for Fallen Eclipse last map, you immediately saw them collapse in on Factor X to be able to find picks very easily after that. This is not that type of map anymore. You find these picks, and you just try to keep space here. As you already see Saxon Hale going after DM, but a lot of healing needs to be given over to that tank here for Fallen Eclipse.
Yeah, you see how long you're willing to kind of sit and wait for, to use those shields, because it gives you inherently a level of advantage. Again, you see the aggressive style to get DM really low. You take a bit of an awkward trade, though, with Eli down, so you're still playing for mid-game, but Saxon Hale, regardless, has to play safe.
Yeah, but Eli, again, I mean, we talked about Lamont being that person to really pop off a little bit that last one to get Fallen Eclipse going. Eli can definitely do that as well, especially on this Genji. While we know them a lot for their tracer play, especially on those Team Chili's tryouts, they had an excellent Genji, and we already saw him here early on get going here, but now you immediately see Volition go off to that high ground, gonna be able to find Lamont. Star Knight can be able to clean him up.
Yep, Eli, though, nice little shot right there to get rid of Fizzy. Hello, Mike. It is going to enable them to be able to kind of just, again, chill out. DM is still really in here, has plenty of care, so not anything scared for the life at this moment.
No, not at all, but this is exactly how you want this map to go here if you're Fallen Eclipse. Look at the timing. Already almost half of it gone here for this first point, and you're holding them at this turn here, which essentially is a choke point right now. Saxon Hale pushing up a little bit, but Vicious and both Lunami have been doing a good job at just keeping Saxon Hale safe and healed up at all times, while at the same time kind of playing with Eli a little bit, especially with Lunami, as they're playing that off angle and finding success almost every fight so far.
Yep, but here is that Kitsune Rush. Vicious is going to use that Amp Matrix to give them a little bit more space to work with. Daxonel's survival really is your biggest priority, especially as Panopticon. He's right around the corner. Eli started to struggle a little bit as well, but they managed to make the space work, and Panopticon gets thrown out there directly over onto Saxonel, who's alive momentarily, but it really is on Eli in the backline to get rid of two, trying to cause a little more separation. DM manages to find the deflect, or I should say, yeah, gets their ability to deflect momentarily, but it's just too much to deal with, unfortunately.
And right now, if you're Fallen Eclipse, you need to back up. You need to reset here. You're gonna have to give up some space to Factor X. But Grand, you got two ultimates out for them. You look at the Override Protocol and that Tidal Blast online here for Factor X. They're in a good spot here. Now be able to use both those, but you still have the Captain Stone. You still have your own Panopticon right now. If you're Fallen Eclipse here, you're not in a spot where you necessarily have to panic just yet, as you're already starting to see a lot of Factor X start taking that high ground. But you're looking for Lamont and maybe shut down Fizzy in the sky.
And you see Fizzy is just trying to manage the space right now as Eli finds a big pick, and now you look at how many low bodies there are, as unfortunately no inherent value coming out there. Saxonel is just so exposed, he's going to be burnt down eventually. And while this isn't a numbers game, it feels like it's more of a game of Lunami going in and still just finding value, by the way. Absolutely insane. They are the big DPS right now, still hanging about, but unfortunately, time is running out. They have no Marquer, and now, question is, does Saxonel have time for a retouch? The answer is yes.
They can, but that Panopticon has to be used here perfectly. Volition, though, starting to come alive here. Now they will be shut down, so Saxonel still does have that ultimate ready to go, and now you have Vicious back.
Yeah, and it's thrown out. It's going to hit directly over onto one. Freyak is gone. Saxonel is out of care out of time, but there's so many still standing by, and DM needs care because it's only two, but it's two of the most dangerous people on the field. And all you can do is try to stall this out, force your bodies on one after another. It's the 1v1, but Lunami is so helplessly outstacked in terms of everything that's thrown out there. Can they retouch one more time? The answer is no. So close to the full hold, but it will not happen.
And right now, I mean, a good job there by Fallen Eclipse to be able to stagger that one out into overtime, but I imagine Lamont's going to make the swap off the Widow here. This second point for Widow is very difficult, but looks like because they have the visor, they might be holding on to it. Saxon Hill already making the swap, going over to the D.Va now. Instead, they want to be able to put a little bit more pressure on the DM, but however, we saw this fight go much the way of DM in that first map when it was I'm dropping names, Empathy, but Saxon Hill might be able to be a little bit better into it this time around.
Yeah, maybe so. Fizzy takes over the high ground immediately, forces Saxonel into a really awkward scenario. Still is going to be able to survive, but here comes the blade from Volition to make some space. Lamont just has nowhere to go. Cleanse is taken care of, two taken out. Hoping to pick up a third right here as everyone's just forced back, and Eli doing a good job of playing over on the cart a little bit. Same thing with Saxonel, who's going to just stall this thing out for as long as possible, give them one more chance to attack.
I feel like that's a little bit of a mistake there by Saxon Hill. They could have gone out of that fight, maybe regrouped with their team, especially as both the supports are still alive here. They could have fallen back. However, it's actually Lunami who's put themselves in the worst spot by not leaving the building. Instead, they'll be taken out there by DM. And now, really, if you put one more person on the car right now, if you're Factor X, you might not really even get a contest here from a Fallen Eclipse. But you see Saxon Hill getting set up to go in. Starry Night, Fizzy, and DM all have ultimates about to be online here. It's going to be very difficult for Fallen Destiny to get anything going here.
Yeah, trying to cause a little bit of separation, tries to do so momentarily, and here comes Eli in with that blade, gets forced back immediately, just doesn't have anybody to go after, and DM gets rid of two. You're running out of care, running out of time, and unfortunately with that Panopticon over onto Saxton Hale, it's going to be really rough to pull this one back. Lunami has a captive son, is waiting for it, it's going to just throw it out there. I don't know if it catches onto anyone besides DM, but to be fair, that's your golden ticket, that's your ability to potentially stay in this one as Cleanse comes out. Vicious will eventually go down. Saxonel has a bomb, though, to kind of regress to stay alive. The question is the remake going to come through? The big answer is yes. And that's massive that they're able to regress and stay in this one, because DM is still so far from the fight to the point where, unfortunately, with Poirier gone, Factor X is not going to be able to stay in this one.
Yeah, and this is something right here where if you're DM, you're kind of just playing back and hoping that they chase, because you look over at Volition, who, I thought they might go for the back cap to C9, not going to be able to do that, but now it's actually Volition who has to be the touch, and they're getting chased down. DM, though, throwing their body towards point, but that tank is slow. They'll be able to get there in time. They do have ultimates going online here. Lamont's going to have that pulse bomb, but Volition and DM not going to be there for this fight.
Oh yeah, Fizzy makes their way back. Unfortunately, the numbers game is so far out of their favor, will be finished off, and that's going to be a hold at the very end of second point. All things considered, again, it may have gone that far, but this felt like a lot more of a dominant round for Fallen Eclipse. Realistically, maybe losing 2-3 fights at most.
Yeah. I mean, it was a great round for Fallen Eclipse. Like I said, they really did find their footing and settle down in this series. Last map, even though they lost it, they were able to really find ways to beat Factor X, which you can go back to the first map and say, like, yeah, they could not find a single way to beat Factor X. So they found the blueprint there. They just need to be able to copy it again here on the attacking side. However, you're gonna be running the same problems that, well, Fallen Destiny just gave Factor X. Factor X is gonna be able to play a couple strong corners here. This first point, very difficult actually to cap. Same thing with second point, really. I mean, all 3 points on this map might be some of the most difficult just push or wow, I'm saying every other mode other than escort. It might be some of the 3 hardest escort points to cap in any map here. And you already see DM going over to the Ramatra, which immediately tells you right away, they do not expect to see Saxon Hale come back out with that Domina. They are expecting this diva from them. And honestly, good call from them. Really good call. But look at Volition here.
Ooh.
On this mate. Actually, no, they're going for a close hold.
They are.
Ooh. I love it. I love the idea for them here, but you have to be watching your off angles because this is an opportunity here for especially someone like Lamont. If they find that one headshot, everything is just going to collapse here for Factor X. Granted, you won't lose a lot of space because you're playing already up at the card.
Yeah, and the question is there immediate adjustment? And for Lamont, there is an immediate adjustment over on that Bastion. Now, your biggest thing really is going to be trying to get rid of... Yeah, oh yeah, just full sail swap. Oh my god, yeah. And you're just gonna throw everything into Lamont here to kind of just force out a bunch of cooldowns, keep some bodies alive, and Volition Fizzy dead instantly, and poor DM is staring out the door, wondering why is the bakery closed at this time of day, as they will be eventually cleared out here as they're just stalling for a little while longer, and that close hold, unfortunately, not gonna find a whole lot as everyone's gonna go and make their swaps back.
You'll gladly take the 35 seconds you got there, but I mean, immediately great plays there by Fallen Eclipse just to be able to understand, like, okay, hey, they're playing this close hold, let's just full sail swap, and it worked out for them immediately. We've seen some teams try to take a fight on that initial comp before they make those swaps. Fallen Eclipse there really understood they don't have the time to do that. Make the swaps now, we'll immediately go back when we win it, and they did that there. A minute gone, and you're already at this first corner, which gave Factor X a lot of hell in last round for them, but Saxon Hale, though, already being pressured out a little bit here by DM back over on that Domina.
Yeah, lots to work with right here. I like the Domina coming back out here. Has a ton of sustainability, and I think Saxon Hale is going to struggle to a degree here. In fact, it's already kind of struggling to stay alive, but Lamont hits a fantastic shot, puts them in a really good situation as Volition going to be exposed as Lamont is getting pretty much attacked by everybody right now. Eventually has to back out, but as many kills as they're getting, they need to eventually put some prioritization over on this card because DM doesn't have a mega health pack and somehow has stayed alive so long, is forced into the corner. It's such a needed pick. They will get it. The question is, do you still have the bodies to make this happen?
Lunami actually need to kind of stay up right there and kind of force that this play wouldn't come out from Volition, but Vicious and Lamont going to be able to take care of them. 4 minutes, 40 seconds here, Hunter, for Fallen Eclipse to be able to extend this series to a 4th map, and right now, they are rolling. They look much different than the team we saw map 1, but DM going to be able to shut down Lamont here. However, this might be the time for Lamont to maybe go back over to the Cassidy we saw him play last map, which, man, that Cassidy looked great.
Yeah, the Cassidy looked amazing. We'll see if it comes to form or not. You're at least coming up on an override protocol if you are Fizzy, so you have options coming up here very soon to deal with right here. Big shots over onto Lunami eventually will be taken down, but that card is still making some progression, and that's your biggest worry right now, is keeping that thing going. Even if you lose the fight, you try to get that thing maybe in one-fight territory as the Panopticon is going to help finish off Vicious as DM is just going to clean up this fight with 3 as Fizzy gonna help them clear them out.
Yeah, if Lamont sticks, I was gonna say, if Lamont sticks with this Widow, they have a lot more confidence in their Widow play than I do. Even though they could be a really great Widow. Going over to the Cassian Sen, this could be an opportunity. You could punish DM here, who may be over-aggressed.
Yep, and now you're going in, and DM is just so far separated from the rest of the team. Though they throw the rally in, they want more than anything to try to get this thing done and dusted right here, but Eli is going to cut down at least one body. DM is so far separated. Fizzy, unfortunately, ends up falling off, and now the full way comes through. Only one fight away from keeping yourself in the series as Fizzy goes back and is making a couple of swaps out of desperation.
TP to get everyone out. They're going to be sticking with the sim. Yes, they are. It looks like they could be able to melt down Saxon Hale's mech here, but Saxon Hale does have that bomb ready to go. Starry Night Volition, those are going to be the 2 you're looking at here for Factor X to make sure this map keeps going for them and the sweep stays alive as already the orbital ray out. That blade not that far behind from Volition.
Yeah, and you're going to throw it in, and Volition's going to just let that loose, and at this point, you're not using anything. You only have the bomb, but Saxon Hale is just going to run back. And honestly, looks like they're gonna go give up the bomb for the remake, it looks like.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I mean, you could have just used the bomb right there if you were still gonna do this.
I think they're swapping tanks.
Basically gonna go back and find Eli, but yeah, this has to be a tank swap coming out from that as they're giving it up.
Oh.
No, they're just going for the mech. That's a huge misplay. I think they're by Saxon Hale. Why not just bomb if you, like, why not just bomb? Unless you only thought the same result was going to happen, that you were just going to get staggered out, why not just bomb? You look over there at the ultimates here. Deadeye ready to go for Lamont. Eli going over to this Bastion now. Want to just melt away DM as fast as they humanly can here.
You would absolutely love to, and obviously Saxon Hale is just going to struggle so badly walking into a Symmetra. I mean, and now you're knocked out of the mech again. You don't have a bomb anymore to remake into, so now you're in a really rough scenario as they're going to keep finishing off bodies. And I think this is where Saxon Hale has to genuinely consider something outside of the Diva.
You might honestly just have to mirror the Domina here at this point. I think the Diva's kind of lost all of its kind of success here, unless you're really hoping that the rest of your team goes in. But Lamont, they're giving up their Deadeye. They're going over to the Tracer now. I mean, these are interesting plays coming out here from Fallen Eclipse. Granted, if it works out for them, then hey, they're the best plays in the world for them right now. But you're walking into that Panopticon not that far away from Photon Barrier and another Orbital Ray from Starry Night. But this could be a potential huge fight right now, as you see everyone on Fallen Eclipse actually in a good spot here. They're grouped up.
Yeah, and Panopticon's going to come out. It catches onto a couple of big bodies. And unfortunately, going to finish against Saxon Hale is just going to get staggered out, but needs to walk back into the turrets, Saxon Hale. They're still there. I promise you, as they're just gonna, be taken out late. And this just feel like misplays now. I gotta be honest.
I feel like it's one big misplay. I think that's what has gotten them to this point here. However, they are building up to ultimates. They do have Consuming Rush. About to have the artillery from Eli, but you need Lumini, you need Lamont, you need Saxon to be able to build up to yet another bomb here, or else this round might just be over, and the series might be over as well. You look over the other side, Photon Barrier online, same thing with the Orbital Ray, but the artillery is out now, poking straight in on DM.
Yeah. Consuming Rush thrown out there, but everyone's just stacking in on that one. It's really hard to find any solution at that point. Saxon Hale, more than anything, needs to stay alive, get a little bit of care, would love to force some bodies off this high ground as, hey, you're doing a good job of that already, but your biggest priority, I think, is DM as well as Fizzy right now, who can burn Saxon Hale down so easily to the point where Saxon Hale put themselves out of position for even a second. That would be enough, but you see they're going to go in with the sound barrier. They want to try to end this thing right now with all of this aggression, but Saxon Hale is so close to being burnt out of the mech as Pulse Bomb going to stick perfectly over onto Farid. They're staying in this one just barely as the overtime is... Oh my god, you're kidding me.
Someone had to touch. I looked at that right there and noticed they all got off with 4 seconds.
Oh my
Someone
god,
had to touch.
dude.
A miss... I don't want to put it on the one misplay there with the bomb from Saxon Hale, as there's a lot of other stuff you could really talk at there, but it really seemed like Fallen Eclipse had everything going their way there. You got rid of the ultimates, you were coming up to your own ones, you kept Saxon Hale in the mech, but you just fall a little short. You fall a little short. You forget to play the payload right there, and Factor X is the benefactor of it here. They get their season-correcting victory right now. Their first one of the season, a huge one for them. But if you're Fallen Eclipse, you probably are looking at that one as this might be a series that, hey, even though you were down 2-0 going into that map, and if you want it, you still had a long way to go, you might have let it slip away from you here, because they looked like the better team that map. They really did.
I really think they did, and there's some brutal errors that are definitely in there that are just really rough to have to deal with in hindsight. I don't know what you say to that, though. It just ends up being, I think it just really is a misplay in a lot of ways. And I don't know if it comes down to just that one. There's a lot of things that they tried to change. I think it was also really good adjustments coming through from Factor X, bringing in the Symmetra, making things rougher and rougher for that Diva. I think they made good swaps, and there just wasn't a good adjustment in return.
And I mean, Hunter, if you can pull up the stats right here, I mean, it only kind of doubles down on the fact that that was a much better map for Fallen Eclipse, that final map.
Yeah,
look at the stats across the board. 50 elims combined for that DPS line for Fallen Eclipse, only 32 for Factor X. And again, DM player of the game here, player of the game, hands down. 22 kills that first map, 32 the second, 34 the last there. I mean, quick maths, that is 86 kills A6 Elims throughout this entire series right there. Incredible performance from them. And again, we know how good of a tank DM can be. And we saw it here tonight. We saw Volition and Fizzy, those two new players coming into the squad, look incredible for Factor X. And like I said, this corrects their season, or at least rights the ship, as they still do have a couple of tough games ahead of them. But you got that first win under your belt. You now know that more are coming. Fallen Eclipse, this is, like I said, one you probably will want back a little bit later down the line, but I think you were able to take a lot away from this game here. Your first win is probably not that far away. It could have been a night, though. I really think it could have been a night. They could have reverse swept.
I think they could have. I think there's a real possibility. And to be fair, even if they go and touch that point, who knows if they actually were able to send that fight over. You saw, I think it was, DM, I think, went down at the very tail end the moment that thing went to 0. It's an unfortunate scenario, but at the end of the day, Fallen Eclipse, again, they have their own opportunities to be able to bounce back. If they can utilize what they did here on Havana, who knows what's going to happen for the future. I kind of talked about what these teams have coming up with Factor X, their next game, which is, I think, a test in its own right, depending on how things go. They got Agave Garfo as their next game over on the 1st. Which Garfo, we'll see how they kind of bounce back in their own right. But for Fallen Eclipse, their next game is against Element Heaven, which is a fascinating game in its own right. We saw Element Heaven, a team that I think definitely needs a bounce back from that Element Ice loss that ended up going 3-1 in Ice's favor.
Element Heaven got better throughout that entire series, though, and I will say that. So that's going to be a really, I think, important matchup for both those two teams, especially as we talked about last season. I mean, you had one undefeated team and 3 teams that only had 2 losses. Granted, I think now Element Eclipse is at, if I remember correctly, 3 on the season. So they would have to win out against some very tough teams. But I think Element Heaven might be a game that is very much winnable for this Fallen Eclipse team. I mean, we saw great performances from Lamont and from Eli. I mean, I think just by itself, this DPS line can really be able to carry this team at times, but we saw great performances from Saxon Hell in this last map, from Empathy in the first couple maps as well. On the support line, we didn't talk about them enough, but they did a decent amount. I'm just looking at it. It looks like they were able to, out heal Factor X a majority of these maps.
I think they were, and that's why it's such a difficult scenario at hand, because the stats tell you all day, especially they really battered back and forth on that second round. It's so heavily within Fallen Eclipse's favor in the third, and yet it doesn't go their way. Somehow, some way, every single stat line is realistically going their way, and yet it just doesn't happen. It's rough, obviously.
It's rough. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, but you hope both these teams can continue to keep bouncing back, keep themselves in the conversation, because with it being so early, everyone's still in that conversation. Everyone still has viability. There's plenty to still do and continue to learn on, but we'll just have to see how things go for the future, because there's only 2, actually, technically, 2 undefeated teams left as of this moment. They don't particularly face until the very end of the season, so we'll get there when we get there, trust me. But again, this early on, still plenty to play for. Everyone still has a shot.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone still has a shot, and I've been, hearkening a lot to the fact that the bottom 3 teams, or seeds 2 through 4 last season, only had 2 losses. I don't think that's going to be the case this time around. I think 3, maybe even a 4 loss, potentially, with how chaotic this could be, especially with some of these rosters. You might, weirdly enough, be seeing a 5-loss team potentially sneak themselves in there. Very, very difficult for that to happen, though. I think 4 losses is about your breaking point when it comes to playoffs. However, still a lot of time before that point here, and both these teams can immediately bounce back next week. Factor X looking to keep the ball rolling here. Fallen Eclipse, I think they can bounce back against Element Heaven. I think they could. I think this could be a very favorable matchup for them. But Element Heaven is a team that I think is going to surprise a couple people here in the coming weeks.
I think there's definitely a really good avenue for that as well. So we'll be excited to get there in that situation. But while the South American stuff is done for today for us, we have a little bit more action still on the way. Haluze. We have a North American game here about an hour and a half from now. The Fallen is taking on Ex Oblivione. So that will be a lot of fun. We're super excited for that game, as Fallen taking that spot of Foxhound. So we'll see if both of these really talented rosters are going to be able to do. But until that point, that's it for us. Again, come back later for that North American game in just about an hour and a half from now. If not, obviously have yourselves a fantastic night. We'll see you a little on later for some Faceit League action. Take care. Hey everybody, welcome back to another fantastic day here. We've already had some nice South American action earlier on with Fallen, Eclipse, and Factor X, but we have a different Fallen coming at you today. The Fallen, as a matter of fact, here to take on Ex Oblivione. And Dex, to be fair, a lot of people would be forgiven if you're not sure who the Fallen is, because there's been some rebrandings throughout the beginning of the season. It's worth noting that this is the team formerly known for about a week as Foxhound.
And formerly known before being known as Foxhound of the old name of Nightmare Academy. And most of this team is actually that Nightmare Academy from last season, for the most part. I mean, you have Dirt here, Unread, Putter, Lau, Zach on this team as well. I mean, this is a team that's been around for a little bit. At least all these players have been around for a little bit. However, we also look over at Ex Oblivione back in NA here. Very excited to have this org back here. AST Design, Neptune, Anyon, Alex, Juice, Solsei. I mean, this is a really good lineup here for Ex Oblivione here. Pirate as well on this team. I mean, this is like both these teams are very, very solid. And them being a very early matchup, I think is a good kind of bar setter for both these two teams as they go on with the rest of their season after this one.
Yeah, definitely so. So we'll be excited to see all these teams have amazing players, those on the bench and those in the starting five. We'll see how they end up transitioning through with all of that as well. This is one of those games I think is going to be extremely important down the line, because Ex Oblivione, they don't get off to the greatest start in the world, but they're hoping to bounce back in this game right here. But it's not exactly going to be an easy thing against a team like the Fallen that we talked about before. Has a lot of these really amazing members, and when you can kind of go and back and forth between Dirt and Hero, who both have their own specialties, it's going to be hard to definitively shut down both of them at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. Dirt, mostly known as a Roadhog player, or really known as the Roadhog player, probably in the world at this point. But outside that, they have actually been able to expand their hero pool a little bit. So it's really fun to see them get away from the Hog. But you know, when you do see that Hog, it is going to be something very, very fun to watch. Hero, on the other hand, maybe one of the better tanks here in this region, especially with all the shakiness that's happened in the last 24 hours. But yeah, I mean, this is a very deep team. Both these teams are actually surprisingly deep when it comes to their players.
Yeah, very deep. And to be fair, we found that has been successful for a lot of teams in the past, to have that depth, these players that can come in, and it feels like, hey, we can play just as efficiently with any five we throw in a position right here. And I think that's the way that I would imagine both of these teams realistically feel. Now, we'll see if any changes come in out the gate for either of these squads. Obviously, these starting five are not locked in by any stretch of the imagination. We're just waiting on the Fallen to have their first ban go through. And Dex, these do tend to be on the safer side as of recent times, and that's not exactly a surprise.
It's not exactly a surprise. Getting a little bit concerned, though. But, I mean, especially for a map like Busan, you normally want to get rid of maybe a hit scan, maybe a little bit of a dive tank coming out here. Tracer to actually be the ban for the Fallen here. Ex Oblivione now will have their opportunity. So they could easily go something like, say, a Diva, if they don't want to be seeing the Diva on this map, who does find a decent amount of value. Or, I mean, again, you talk about safe bans. Kiri, Lucio, definitely part of that safe ban right now. You can get rid of Zarya here. You can't get rid of any DPS hero. So with Tracer being gone, you might see a lot of teams kind of gravitate towards that Zarya Vendetta comp still, as I feel like that's what we normally see, that flex DPS play here without the Tracer available. Genji, another one you could potentially see here, but it's just waiting for Ex Oblivione to make their ban. Yeah,
well, Steven's coming through here. Again, Tracer, I think, is another one of those really safe picks. It's just really simple to go down that route ultimately and just deliver something that just has staying power. Again, it's the Tracer. The Tracer finds inherent value in pretty much any scenario, so I don't really blame you going down that route out of the gate. You could likely see a safe pick on the support category, potentially. It really is just dependent on the style you want to be able to force.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, very early matchup here. Wow. Very early matchup in the season for both these two teams that has a lot of meaning behind it, because, hey, you look a little bit later down the line, they still have a lot of tough matchups ahead of them. This is Masters tier. And while you could always say any given Sunday, any given day, you could have a team come out here who's potentially sitting at the lower part of the standings, beat one of those higher ones. I feel like this season in Masters, there is a little bit of a line where it's like, yeah, these teams might most likely will struggle, but this is an important matchup here. And like I said, it's really a bar setter, I think, for both these two teams going into the rest of their season, playing a very tough matchup early on in the season.
Yeah, it's a healthy thing, honestly. Rather than you have that little later down the line, you want to get tested really early on, so you need to figure out how to adjust. It makes your life a little bit easier for the long term, in my imagination. But we'll see how things go. We're just waiting on rosters to finalize, but we already see a change or two happening.
Yeah, so right now, immediately, the Fallen, they have their lineups, their stars in there, but we kind of know this is to be expected a little bit here with any team that has some subs. That you could see a lot of movement. It looks like Azeroth will be coming in map 1. Same thing for Hero for the Fallen. This one, you still have Unread, Lau, and Zach as their stars. On the other side, doesn't look like we're really seeing any subs there. Actually, no, a late one. Onion going to be stepping out while Solsei going to be coming in. Domino the second ban, though.
Yeah, it will be fascinating to see the Domino, again, another one of those really strong fixtures. I can't really blame anyone on going for the ban on that. With it being Busan as well, I think Domino finds value on most maps, quite frankly. It's just the kind of tank that exists in the day of 2026 Overwatch. But we'll see what kind of value we get without the Dominant in effect. I think realistically you might kind of go down the road of something like the Diva for some of these more open points. And when we go over to Mecha Base, if we get there, maybe it opens up to like the Ramattra, maybe the Orisa. There's definitely a lot of options to go down. And the Domino being gone, I think really does enable things like that Diva to be in effect.
Yeah, I think it allows the Diva. It allows that Zarya still. I mean, like I mentioned, with Tracer being banned out, you normally do see those flex DPS players kind of gravitate towards maybe something like the Genji or maybe something like that Vendetta. And Zarya does work well with with both those heroes, but so does Diva. So it's going to be really interesting to see what both these two teams are going to be coming out here with going into our first map of this series of Busan. And it looks like we will be starting off on Mecha Base. So it's going to be interesting to see what we see coming out here. Again, we both kind of probably expect it to be Diva, especially on this map where being able to traverse the high ground to low ground is very, very important here.
Extremely important. We'll see which way these teams want to go. If you want to play something that has a little more poke potential, you can easily go to the bridge more to the outside and just kind of keep rotating, give yourself space. It's more than likely we'll see these two teams brawl out the gate, though, as we see the tried and true coming through at the very least over here from the Fallen. Meanwhile, AST Design, who has played a lot of Ramattra in the past, would be a very simple go-to scenario like this, but we'll have to see if we see the Zarya come in last second. But either way, Zach, Hero, going with that combo. We'll see how well it works to get things started.
Yeah, that's not the biggest surprise coming out here from the Fallen. I mean, I talked about it. Without the Tracer being there, you normally will see teams kind of gravitate towards playing this Vendetta at the moment. Yeah, you see actually both teams coming out with the Vendetta, but I think it's going to be a little bit more difficult here for, oh my goodness, Zach, never mind.
Bye! It was good knowing you, Zach. Hasta la vista. As that is dusted right there. That doesn't mean the fight's over, by the way. You get such an early pick to where you actually realistically get another fight.
Yeah, you're going to get another fight here pretty quickly. Juice very low, but you already do see Hero pretty highly charged, and this is exactly what they want, but you're already going to start to see Exoblivione just rotate back towards point, knowing that the Fallen's not really going to have any true engagement here, that it'd almost be the worst thing they could do. They're going to let the point get captured before they eventually try to make a little bit of a split play, but unread, getting rid of Solsei.
Yeah, that's the big opening that you realistically needed. Now you're putting pressure on point. Someone's got to drop back to deal with Unread, who's now just kind of hanging in there. And in fact, it doesn't look like anybody's going to touch this at all. They're just going to back up and get their fifth back instead.
Yeah, I mean, it's already kind of showing you right now that both these teams very much value their vendettas in these fights, especially right now if you're looking at the Fallen, because that's basically going to be the only way that the hero gets a lot of charge and allows the Zarya to be a little bit more independent on their own.
Yeah, definitely. But now you have Katsune Rush around the corner. Pirate is slightly behind, but Lau is going to have it for right now as they're going to run through AST Design. Barely going to be hanging on. Again, that big block coming through is just really difficult to deal with still, even in 2026 with the nerfs it has had. But now this kind of gives you that range to work with, give Azeroth some space to work with, as well to find some inherent value. But right now, rotations are happening, but no one's dying.
Katsune Rush not out here from Pirates to try to get their team going here, and you already see them find Lau.
Yeah, and you're going to have the momentary cap come through. It's still a 4v4. Not something done yet, but with Azrif down, yeah, that'll definitely get that one stomped in place. But Zach gets the exit frag onto Solsei, so this should be a quick regroup.
Yeah, and it already kind of looks like the Fallen at least going to have a little bit of a split play coming out here, as it's going to be Zach going straight to point while the rest of their team going to be fighting on that high ground. AST Design is trying to back up to the safety of the rest of their team, but Neptune going to be the one meeting Zach on the point.
Yeah, and making plenty of space right now as you see some bodies in there. No one's going to go down as a direct zone. In fact, Sound Barrier going to be used, but it's not going to save Zach, and it is the big investment here doing the solo Graviton Surge over onto AST Design. But Solsei is still in the back causing and wreaking havoc. The question is this a 3v3 that you can win? With Azari on your team, you hazard to say, yeah, you can take this one away, as someone's going to have to force a stall, but right now there's no stall to be had.
Yeah, no one's going to force a stall because really, Oblivion is in a great spot here coming in this fight. They have Annihilation, they have Beat, they're going to have Sundering Blade. I mean, you just use Beat and Grab if you're the Fallen here, but as of here early on, fighting that. Oh no!
No, Neptune lost it. No, that's so unfortunate. Now ASC Decide has to pop the Annihilation just to basically live for an extra 4 seconds, as they're going to get cut off immediately. And unfortunately, even though you're kind of in the 4v4 still, you're getting some bodies back in, you're hanging in there. Unfortunately, the rest of the team isn't for ASC Design, as now you just got to run for it, regroup for one more fight.
We were for one more fight, and the only thing you really have here right now, if you're Oblivion, is this Sundering Blade. I like what we're seeing here from the Fallen. They're taking some space, but they're immediately going to fall back and go play this upper choke point, where Oblivion has really exclusively gone through. And I mean, they're calling the shot right here. Oblivion going to try to go through this upstairs room, but now you see the ultimates coming out here.
Yeah, and now it is just clearing them out one after another. Just ASC Design and Pyra currently hanging on, but everyone is now down. The full team might come through. That will secure Mecha Base here in favor of the Fallen. And unfortunately, not the ideal scenario, but Zach doesn't even have to end up using that Sundering Blade to take that round.
No, not at all. I mean, a really good round there from the Fallen. And really, it took up until those last 2 fights to have a true team fight actually come out there, where everyone was actively engaging into it, even after losing a member of their team. Those first couple engagements from both teams, it was, hey, we lost one. We're just going to back out. We're going to let you take the point, and we'll come back in with 5. Both these teams are trying to play a very, very smart game here. They're not trying to overstep their boundaries and get punished, like very much what happened with Solsei there, which kind of, I think, started the Fallen's kind of comeback in that point, where Solsei got picked out very, very late in a fight that they had really won, or at least forced back the Fallen, but you immediately saw that pick happen, and then the Fallen came right back in. But look at this, Hero now swapping over to the D.Va instead. No big swaps coming out from Oblivion here, so let's see how this D.Va works into ASC Design's Ramastra here very early on, especially without those perks.
Yeah, it will be fascinating to see what route we end up going down here, as Zach is down super early. And unfortunately, you already see Hero just being run down by ASC Design, forced out of a lot of these fights. Everyone else already sitting pretty low on health. This is looking really good out of the gate here with Hero down. This first point will be secured in tow. Here's Oblivion, this time getting off on the right foot.
Also, Hero's first death. They never died that first point. They did a really good job. Lao somehow staying alive here. Nope, never mind that. Neptune's going to be able to find them. So now a bigger reset point here for the Fallen. And honestly, I mean, you're going to stick with the D.Va here for probably 1 or 2 more fights. But if you don't find anything in either one of those fights, you're going to most likely have to swap back. But at that point, it might be a little bit too late. But oh my goodness, Juice. Very quiet in that first map, or first point. Going to be able to find Azrif out here. So you're just going to see a little bit more of a stall now for the Fallen, as this is exactly the start that Oblivion was looking for, as they're just keeping their space perfectly at the moment, not pushing up too far, not trying to put themselves in a bad spot where they could be punished.
Exactly. You have no reason to be up there right now. You have the tools to be able to kind of hang around wherever you really want to, but you don't want to let Azrif or Zach kind of find that one person exposed and, find the difference and get through. I like this. You're forcing everyone from the Fallen to make their way to the point, to force things a certain way. Now, AST Design can just kind of sit there forever on point. Everyone has to either take the attention there or has to go to the back line, where eventually AST is going to go after the sole target that just isn't defended. It's a really good way of going about it right now, but so far, no one's gone down. Pirate goes down before having this ult on the ready, but with this being the case, it is a stall game at this stage. Solsei hang around a little bit longer, as Juice and Neptune doing the exact same thing. They should get this thing close to the 75 marker. 72, though, is where it'll stop.
And you'll gladly take that. Honestly, if you're Ex Oblivione, a great start for this map. However, really no ultimates came up for either team there. That's how quick these fights were, and each team trying to make sure they weren't really just feeding there. A good job by the Fallen not to make sure they were feeding in a lot of these fights, but look, WoW has Kitsune Rush. Pirate can have theirs as well. Hero, Azov, and Unread not that far away from their ultimates. Hunter, this could be a pretty big ult fight here if it goes decently long.
Yep, sound barrier around the corner here for Unread. Unfortunately, don't know how much value it might find. A sound barrier this time is going to connect. Just Unread's going to keep them alive momentarily. The problem is, I don't know if you have the tools to pull this one back. Ezra is getting a ton of pressure and can't find any inherent value. Bomb thrown out on top of that. ASC Design is in a rock in a hard place. Will be cleared out with the bomb here. Retains the mech as well. So this is still a very winnable scenario, as eventually the point flip is going to come back through at 72%. And now Juice finishes out 2 more to get that fight carried out, as Hero is getting staggered.
Hero's gonna get staggered, and it was unfortunate because Lau did come in, threw that Suzu down on them, but it was just a split second too late to save them in that mech. They probably would have lost the mech as well, but Lau going over to, nope, just the life we were to pull them closer there. And honestly, they don't lose that much. They don't lose that much ult charge because they just used that Kitsune Rush in the previous fight. But now, touching to come out, it will be Zach that gets the touch here. But ASC Design does have the annihilation, and they're already popping it off. Yeah,
as they should. It's going to force Hero in such a compromised position. Juice is still finishing people up, by the way. He's already gotten rid of 2. You get a momentary retouch coming through, as unfortunately everyone's just so far separated. Juice is going to help get rid of a 3rd here with Azraf, and it's just the supports hanging about. Hero DMAC'd once again, as this one's going to be done and dusted. We head to a 3rd round here, where Downtown is going to settle this first map.
Yeah, Downtown's going to settle it, and I think, honestly, the D.Va might end up sticking here for the Fallen, but I think the D.Va on this last point was just not it. It wasn't finding the value you were truly looking for there. It wasn't making space. It wasn't really disrupting a lot there. A lot of the times it seemed like Heroes also just putting themselves in a spot where they were almost putting themselves in a sense of danger, a little bit far away from their team. Zach was trying to play with them, but just didn't end up working out. And now look, it looks like Hero going to stick on the D.Va on a much better point for the D.Va. AST Design, though, tease us with the Zarya, might go back to it here, but gonna be sticking with Ramatra. I like this a little bit better here from Hero. Brawl v Brawl. I think the Zarya, especially on that first map, did a number for the Fallen there. They're gonna be sticking with it here now, and Zach going back over to that Vendetta after getting the Symmetra TP out of point.
Yeah, I don't mind it at all. Just staying over on the Sojourn also makes plenty of sense as well. So much success in that previous round. We'll see if we'll be able to follow up with any of that. You see immediately the pressure from Zach, force him out and try to have an easier time. Unfortunately, Zach almost goes down. Luckily, he has every cooldown in the world to stay alive and get out of there. But next, it really is about getting this first pick, finding the person that is exposed and force out some of these cooldowns here. And it's right now Pirate, who is having to run for it. Eventually, he's going to be able to get out, but with that, Neptune drops back to help out, is so far separated, somehow stays alive. But it's unlikely to matter as ADC Design, no care left. The Fallen going to take away this first point. They roll through as well, and Lau, by the way, are ready 2/3 of the way there to having a Kitsune Rush.
Yeah, look at this. Almost immediately, AST Design just going to get off the Ramatra, realizing that it really struggled for them on that first point against the Zarya, and just have to say, like, hey, we have to mirror the Zarya here. And I think that Solsei is going to very much thank them for that, because I think Solsei has died a little bit early in some of these fights because they do not have that bubble to kind of save them.
It did not. Juice down early, though, gives you a really good opportunity to break it through. ASC Design, though, needs a little bit of care. Unfortunately, the care is dying around them, as that's going to be a full team wipe coming through here momentarily for the Fallen. And now you have the Kitsune Rush first. You're going to likely have the beat first. You're going to have a lot of things first.
You're going to have a lot of things first here. I mean, Neptune's not even 50% to their own beat. ASC Design, because of the swap, only 33%, but they're not that far behind. But already, Laugus go off with the Kitsune Rush, and you already see Azra finding one.
Yeah, you don't mind it. AC Design dies late as well. And I like this. You're playing aggressive. You're not even giving them a chance to set up for a fight. And this is exactly what the Fallen wants to do.
50% and counting now for them. They're going to fall back. They don't really have any ultimates at the start of this engagement to really be able to keep this kind of pressure up, but not that far away from beat. You're about to have Overclock. You're about to have Sundering Blade. You're in a good spot right now to try to take these fights very, very quickly. Again, both these teams, once they lose one person, they normally just back out and wait for that person to come back. However, we're getting closer and closer to that point where Ex Oblivione cannot necessarily do that. Pirate, though, Kitsune Rush online, and they're going to use it to respond to the overclock from Azraf as we get a pause, as normally this just means someone has disconnected, but we're gonna try to figure out who. It's Solsei.
Not
And
the best
that's
person in the world.
yeah, they were so close to their ultimate as well.
Yeah, so Zach, don't kill me, Zach. Yeah, so this is gonna be rough because you've already put in the Kitsune Rush, and unfortunately, there's no real backing out of this one. You're kind of in it to win it. Um, there's nothing to say elsewise. Honestly, they're just in a bad situation, and I don't know if there's a way out of it.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna heavy commit into this fight. The Kitsune Rush is already kind of telling you that you looked at this fight as one that we kind of had to win here if you're Ex Oblivione, and especially at that 74% that the point is at right here for the Fallen. It was one that if you lose this fight, you're going to be rushing back to the point anyway. And you look at the ultimate charge for a lot of people, as we just said, it was Solsei very close to their Sundering Blade. Juice was about to have that overclock. So they were coming into ultimates. And if you find 1 or 2 picks early on, as it looks like, oh, the minute gone and Solsei's not back.
Yeah, that's crazy. So now, yeah, because that's the way it works. You can't throw a pause out there anymore. Now with 85%, can't really do anything. You just have to try to bum rush to the point and get a touch.
Yeah, and I mean, the unfortunate thing is the grab now coming out, and it looks like Neptune should at least be able to get a touch here to try to extend this one, but it's going to be very tough for Ex Oblivione to really do anything. Down a man in every fight.
Yeah, there's genuinely nothing you can do. No touches coming through. So that's going to be your first one done, and thus to take it away by the former Foxhound, now the Fallen. But in all fairness, it really was heavily going their way going into that fight. You obviously don't know what could have happened elsewise. It's unfortunate, but you got to just truck on, move forward, and figure it out, unfortunately.
Yeah, very unfortunate, because Ex Oblivione looked like on that second point, they kind of figured out everything that the Fallen wanted to do, but I think the Fallen playing that diva just did not end up working out for them at all. Like I said, it kind of messed up their entire flow that we saw from point 1, and especially there on point 3 when the Zarya was there, really allowing Azeroth to be able to do what they wanted on that on the Vendetta, just being able to play a little bit aggressively there, and it's just unfortunate that is the case. And I mean, we've seen other problems happen like this in the past where, hey, one person gets DC'd from the server and then it's another person getting DC'd. This is the first time I think me and you have seen one person just get DC'd and them not be able to get back into the lobby. Very unfortunate for Ex Oblivion, because like you said, it would have been tough for them to maybe win that point, but again, it's one of those what if situations.
It definitely is, but with the fact that they are, picking as quickly as they are for EXO, I think they figured out the solution. They're going to be able to go in with a different 5 going into this one. Or more so, I would say, have their 5 ready to go for this one. As they ban out the Vendetta pretty much immediately. Saravoss is picked immediately as well. And to be fair, after what we saw, the Vendetta being gone, for me, it makes a ton of sense.
Oh, it makes all the sense in the world. I mean, the Vendetta's got a lot of value for both teams that map. Even though the Vendetta, unfortunately, Solsei got disconnected in that final point. I mean, you can go back to the second point and the first point where they looked incredibly well on it. Even without that Zarya there to be able to bubble them, they looked good in a lot of those situations. Ban for the Fallen did come in. We'll let you know what it is when we figure it out here, but it's going to be interesting to see, does Solsei stay in here? Does some subs come in? Do other subs come in here for the Fallen? Because, I mean, Dirt is still there. Putter is still there. We know how good they are. Shaq is still there as well for the Fallen, so we could see a lot of movement coming in here, but again, that's a little bit of a lackluster and a little bit of a buzzkill way to end that last map there for Ex Oblivione. They need to get off to a good start this map, though, just to kind of show that how that map ended doesn't necessarily affect them both mentally and just their momentum going forward.
Yeah, I imagine it won't affect them too much. I think they'll just simply lock back in and go again. I think that's what a lot of these players are good for, is being able to simply bounce back from any kind of scenario. These are players that are not shy to the spotlight. They're not shy to the playoffs, to those big game deals and having to fight back in them. Not shy in the slightest. So we'll see what comes through here. As again, we're just waiting for the lineups to finalize. We'll see if there's any swaps. For now, hasn't been any. We'll see if anything comes into play. But it wouldn't surprise me if these lineups stay as they do, quite honestly.
It wouldn't surprise me either. I mean, this This might be one of the maps that I would expect to see Dirt on, because I feel like you play a lot of poke on this map, and Hog definitely could be a viable pick on this map in some cases. But I just think we saw an excellent kind of play there from Hero that first map to really say like, hey, you don't need to really make this sub here right now. But still, about a minute and a half left on that timer for them to finalize their rosters. Does Solsay stay in? Does Solsay even have connection back? I think that's gonna be a big thing here for them. We might see a sub just because of that for Ex-Oblivion, but like I said, Ex-Oblivion needs to get off to a good start in our second map, or else, I mean, they'll be staring down the barrel of a 3-0 sweep potentially, and their back's already against the wall. But still, I think this Ex-Oblivion team has the talent to really make this an even series after 2 maps.
Yeah, I think so as well. And you see the timer kind of going down. I think just waiting for like, hey, if the connection doesn't come back, we do that, and we will see a swap come through at the last second as well, as the Atlantis will finalize Solsay onto the bench, Alex taking over.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate, because that definitely means there's still a little bit of a problem with Solsay. At least that's what I'm going to assume is the case here. This could just be a legitimate sub for this map where they were going to bring in Alex anyway. But, I mean, Solsay, a really good player. Unfortunate that maybe there might be an internet problem with them. But, again, Kiriko going to be our second ban here coming out from the Fallen. So I think you're really seeing something here. They want to try to play away from it here. Dirt, not going to be in this time around. Same thing with Putter and Shaq for the Fallen. No subs for them, actually. But what do we see? Do we see Poke? Do we see that Diva come back out here? Or do we even see the Zarya still? Because, I mean, Zarya's still strong with anyone here, and you already see Hero at least locking the Zarya for the brief moment. AST Design, though, going over to the Domina. I mean, Hunter, me and you have seen what the Domina's been able to do, especially earlier tonight in South America. North America, though, it might be a little bit different, but still, Domina very strong at the moment.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating to see what goes down as a result. Alex, Zach both going to TP out. Realistically, it might be the Tracers, but Zach was peeking over on that venture. And remember, the original combo with the Zarya really did come down to that venture. They went over to the Reaper, and obviously the Vendetta has been the go-to for some time here. And yeah, we're going to go with the... Oh, I love the venture style with this. We'll see how well it works out, though, to get things started on this first point.
I do like the venture here. I really do. Like you said, it's a really fun kind of style, but if you want to be able to get past this Domina, it's basically just have Zach burrow behind AST Design and just try to drill dash them through their shield, put them in front of it so that they can get all the damage there, because that's been the one thing we've kind of always seen with Domina, is that they just have a lot of sustainability, a lot of health, it seems.
Oh, a ton. And now Hero, all the charge in the world, but still needs to find a way to actually use it. His AST Design is going to be burnt to smithereens, and the rest of the squad, unfortunately, just has to prioritize their own lives here, as Alex install a little while longer in on this one, but it's just not going to matter, as Alex is going to get out alive for the time being. The reset as the Fallen again start off strong.
I mean, again, this is what I said. Ex-Oblivion, they could still come back this point. They need to have a strong start, though. That was not necessarily the best one there, as you really just saw Zach and Hero kind of melt away through the shield just to get enough of an opening to get to ASC Design, and the support was not there to really keep them alive. I mean, the longer you keep this Domina in fights, the better of a chance you have to win them here, especially because of how good Domina is. And you already see Hero and almost Unred getting taken out there. But still, if you are Ex-Oblivion, you need to be able to punish someone who's playing on an off angle, and there it is.
Yeah, the punishment that you were looking for. Neptune, though, is being taken care of, so you lose out on that speed aspect. Hero is a little separated, but there's so many low bodies right now to where if Hero gets even just a little bit of help right now, they should be able to shut this down. But Hero so far separated at this point to where the slightest bit of damage might just take care of business. And now the fact that they're so separated means they can't even participate fully in the fight, and Zach cannot touch again. 78% going to come out, and while Pirate is going to go down, Zach, Hero are not going to be survivors.
They're not going to be survivors there, and I think this is exactly what you need if you're Ex-Oblivion. One good fight, and like you said, everyone's kind of playing split up there. Even though there were low bodies there for Ex-Oblivion, there was just not enough finishing power individually there for the Fallen to really be able to take that fight right back. However, you look at the ultimates here coming in this next engagement. You have Overclock, you have Grab ready to go, and there's not a beat on the other side to really slow it down. Alex's Pulse Bomb is going to be really the only thing ready here for Ex-Oblivion early, but if you can just wait a little bit longer, Juice should have that Overclock.
Yeah, and with the shield gone, Azif is probably going to pull the trigger momentarily on this overlock to maybe try to burn down AST Design, but here it comes. Hazold as well. Big stick, though, as Azif is taken down at the perfect time. And now, point is going to flip over, and Juice, it's going to be their turn to try to change this one around. Zach is down early. The solo grab over on to Juice. Is it going to find a ton of value right here? Is Rally going to be thrown in as well? They really want to try to find a way to win this fight. As Panopticon also gets thrown out. Doesn't end up finding a ton either, but Unread is just so far separated at this point. They'll eventually be taken out, but they're somehow staying in this one as it'll flip back over. Question is, will we have a retouch? I think the answer is yes.
Yeah, I think we should see a retouch here. Now, Hero getting off of the Zarya, going over to the D.Va instead. This definitely does really buy that they want to go for a retouch here. You have Zac having this Tectonic Shock ready to go, and I imagine they do have the perk that gives them the 300% ult charge or ability charge up there. There's a touch coming out there from Zac. Hero now coming in behind them to try to keep them alive here, but the beat out from Neptune early.
Yeah, and Azrav is just separated, and now this is rough as Zac's thrown into the air, and Neptune gets tossed like a frisbee. Oh my god. Stays alive though, but the rematch coming through does not inspire confidence here, as eventually they'll be cleared out. Azrav goes back over to the Tracer now in this exchange to maybe help, but I don't think a retouch is coming through as Neptune is finishing off body after body, and that's be the first one heading over to EXO.
And honestly, I think this is exactly what you want here if you're EXO. Didn't get off to the best start, but look at what you already have here now from the Fallen. Hero making a swap, Azrav who made swap, Zac made swaps. You got exactly what you wanted. You got the Fallen off of their chosen heroes early on, and you put yourself into a great spot going to our second point where you have your own Pulse Bomb, you have your own Amp Matrix. There's nothing ready here in the near future for the Fallen. You are now in a good spot if you're Oblivione to really start to get a foothold in this map, in this series, and start to become a little bit more the dominant team here.
Hey, that's definitely what you're hoping for, but we'll see how it ends up going down. Alex has a Pulse Bomb ready to go. We'll love to find a target. Azrav, though, is by themselves. Lances slide back down. His Pulse is thrown up there. Doesn't find any inherent value, though, as the Tracer's back into the 1v1. Back over on the point. Azrav eventually taken out. Hero now doesn't have quite as much care, but Neptune jumps into the middle of the point. Will be taken care of very swiftly so. So you're hoping to get one more touch on here. Hero will get it, will step off momentarily once more, but still manages to retain it as Hero had themselves a nice little Thanksgiving dinner eating the Panopticon. Pirate is separated while Hero is definitely getting plenty of damage thrown into them. They're getting even more care in return.
I was talking about how it looked like Oblivione was in a good spot here, kind of get a foothold in this map and start taking it over, but now it all kind of falls apart as it is actually the Fallen who gets the first cap here, only expelling the Orbital Ray, but you lose Zac early on. Look at ASC Design though, going over to this Ramatra now, wants to have a little bit of an upper hand on Hero, and I think this is a great swap here right now.
100%. We'll see how it goes though. You see them willing as bite. Okay, Hero. See you next fall, buddy. Unfortunate. And now they're going to keep moving through. This one's somehow not done quite yet. But with that, it's just Zac and Azrav who said, nah, this is not my job. Azrav said, nah, actually, no, it is my job. They'll get rid of Juice, but it's not going to matter a ton as of this moment.
Oh, Azrav's actually going to be able to get out here. This could be a really quick re-engage now from the Fallen, especially with a bomb, their own overclock, and a Pulse Bomb about to be ready for them. They could go really fast here. However, you look at the other side. Oblivione is about to have 4 of their own ultimates here, and in a really good spot just to be able to kind of stall on this point for a very, very long time, unless it was someone like AC Design early.
You'll have to see right now. Bomb's still available here, both for Zac and Hero for that matter. But you still have to play the safe right now. You can't let Juice just keep taking pot shots over and over again. You have to back up there as eventually Sound Barrier thrown in. Remember, there's no Sound Barrier available because Lau is over on the Juno right now. So now Alex being taken care of is going to open the door a little bit more. Hero might have to bomb here shortly to retain, but it's just going to back up a little bit and get some care.
No, but that's a great kind of engagement there for the Fallen. You got rid of 3 good ultimates right there and really only lost 1 person. And you find Pirate almost immediately. This should be you at least getting this point in your control. AC Design will fall, but now it looks like it's just be staggering touches out here for Oblivione. As they will get up to about 90, I think 8% before it flips over. So all they really need to do is win 1 fight here. But already at 50% and counting right now for the Fallen. Oblivione really only has maybe about 1 more fight on this point before it's all said and done. And you look at the Fallen. Bomb, Pulse Bomb, and another Orbital Ray for Lau ready to go. You're looking at AST, you're looking at Juice. Someone needs to find an early pick or build up an ultimate fast. Alex throws out the Pulse Bomb, finds nothing but ground.
Yeah, but Unread's unfortunately in such a bad situation. Eventually he's taken care of. Hero might have to be forced to use the bomb, and in fact they will, just to go back to the point and remech. And they're throwing everything in this fight, thinking, hey, we can still turn this around, we can win this, but ASC Design is just taking every bit of damage right in the face, but still the rest of their team is not quite as protected, being cleared out, and now it's looking like this one right here is going to be traded out here. AC Design going to fall on over. The Annihilation, jeez, does not work, as we're going to tie things up here on Cervasa.
And And it looks like we're heading all the way across the map now to Palace here. But again, a very expensive fight there for both teams. A lot of ultimates invested there. That ASC Design Annihilation, they were really hoping was going to be able to get them that point flip, and which would eventually ended up with them taking the point. But now Hero, still not in mech, has to build it up here pretty quickly, or it's going to be a very easy engage here for Exoblivione. But I don't think they know that Hero's not in that mech yet, because they're really not taking advantage of it. Hero back in the mech, almost gets the crush kill there, but going to be able to safely get back into it here and fly back to their team.
And now it might be dependent on Zach to get the initial touch if you decide you want to take this point away or fight for it before the cap comes through. But Hero is back in time, so there actually will be time for that touch. Instead, Alex has another pulse bomb, is hoping for a good one right here, is waiting for the target, decides it's not worth it. Hold on to it a little while longer, it's unread. Has the rally coming through. Pulse bomb going to get absolutely nothing, as they're going to be ran down. This point is going to be lost before that 20% marker. 60% is all you get.
And a really good engagement there, and that's probably one of the fastest percentages you could get a point back after having it flip over there. 16 is very low. It's about, like, what, 14, 15 seconds there? I don't know how fast the percentage goes up, but it's a lot faster than just normal control here. But you look at this next engagement, you're going to have, at the Fallen, again, in a really good spot. You're only using that rally in the last engagement. They're going to have 4 ultimates ready to go, while beat an Amp Matrix and the overclock potentially from Juice going to be online here, but you already start to see a little bit of a split coming out here as ASC Design goes right down mid, but you see the rest of the team really go up to that high ground and trying to get control of that.
Yep. Pulse Pump's a little low for Zach. It's Azrath, though, that needs to find a little something. Something has to back out so heavily, though, is trying to find some pot shots. Unfortunately, no one really wanted to expose themselves to a scenario like this. To be fair, can't blame a single person for that here, as Hero is struggling to stay over on this point with all this damage coming through. Bomb is going to be available to be able to re-mech with. That they will be able to do successfully, but Juice is keeping them in this, at least for the moment. But eventually, resources are going to run out. Cooldowns expiring in AST Design. While they take it back momentarily, I don't see this as permanent.
I mean, Alex is there with them. There's no supports. You lose Alex now. AST Design, the only one left alive here for Exoblivione. You do have Neptune coming back now on this brig, but you're gonna have to immediately see him fall back. Do we see another engage here? I think Hero's gonna try to make sure that does not happen. And no, it's not. They know where the next point's gonna be. It's gonna be exactly right behind him. So that looks like to be the plan here for Exoblivione. Just play for the first fight here, or an early fight here on our potential final point of this map here. Only have the pulse bomb to their name. They're gonna need to get something here early on, as both pulse bombs ready to go here. And let's be honest, both these tracers haven't really been able to find much with them so far.
So far, no. We'll see, as they've been really just in each other's grill, essentially, thus far. Haven't really found the big connection that you're kind of hoping for, and that's really what you need, that big connection. But that's the one right there, on to Azrath. We talking into reality here. As without the Soj, you're simply forced to kind of back off momentarily, and as you see Zach back up, they're just going to surrender this point away as sort of, how is that not censored?
Yeah, because there's a Q in the what.
Oh my
but
God.
Here's the thing, again, going back to what we saw a lot on the first map, if one of these teams loses someone early on, they don't engage into the fight. They don't want to stagger themselves out more. They don't want to feed more into it. They just back up and re-engage. The Hero now going in, going to be able to get themselves out of there safely. Not going to be able to find anyone just yet, but you're slowly starting to see Exoblivione start rotating back towards point as the Fallen now coming in at full strength.
Yep. Zach hoping for a perfect pulse bomb moment coming up here. Juice right now is forced in the back, and it's going to be a connection on the Sojourn once again. Big opening now coming their way. 50% is on the board, though. It's all about trying to sustain this as long as you possibly can, but ASC Design, again, running out of resources very quickly. It looks like they're just going to back up, let this go at 64% as they want to try to get everybody out alive, but Zach and Hero not letting that happen. Everyone's going to fall over regardless.
A great collapse there by the Fallen. They understood. They knew that AST Design was low. They knew that it was Pirate and Neptune trying their damnedest to keep them alive there, but they understood that if they all just focused in on them, dived in on them, there was not going to be any survivors there. I like that play for them. Now, again, look at the ultimates. You're about to have 4 online here for Exoblivione. You're going to have 4 online for the Fallen as well. And this could be a pretty heavy fight here, as you already see the overclock coming out, but the rally in response from Neptune.
Yeah, no one really able to find anything quite yet, but now everything in place. You are in final fight territory. Now, luckily, you still have yourself the Annihilation. You still have the Amp Matrix to work with. You have great tools here, but you might argue there are better ones available here. But Azrath down early puts you in such a vulnerable position where Pirate is being tossed around like a ragdoll, and the rest of their team might be following suit. It's down to the 3v3. ASC Design and Juice need to pop off for the sake of the team to keep them in this one. But it's just AST Design now, having an Annihilation ready to go. Is going to try to burn away Hero. Will do so as AST Design is hit with plenty of damage as the Pulse Bomb's not going to connect. And Alex dies on the point. Neptune is there momentarily to stall things out, but it's not going to be enough. It's going to be match point coming online here for the Fallen. EXO, they try as they will. Unfortunately, again, they come up just a bit short.
Just a bit short, but I think this was a much better map for Ex-Oblivion compared to what we saw from Busan. However, it's just the Fallen finding ways to really win fights. And again, there are a lot of situations this map where the Fallen went into fights not having that ultimate advantage and still ending up just dragging the fight out long enough to where they found themselves having the ultimate advantage. Really great play all around from them, but a lot of these final fights we saw come out there, each team had a number of ultimates, and it just really seemed like there was a little bit more understanding and communication coming out from the Fallen, who they needed to get rid of first. And I think a lot of that comes down to how Hero was really playing that diva, focusing just in on the back line in a lot of those situations, really disrupted all the healing that came out from both Neptune and Pirate there. Great play there from the Fallen, understand where they needed to go. Ex-Oblivion, I feel like a lot of it just hinged on how much space AST Design was able to take. And a lot of the time you just saw that, well, the Fallen just let that space be taken because they were more focused on the back line instead.
Yeah, definitely were. So we'll see the last opportunity you're going to have for EXO to have that map pick in that first ban. As Runasapi is going to come through for our third and potential final map, and we'll see which way the ban goes. I think it feels like there's a plethora, honestly, of issues that were kind of going your way. I mean, Dex, if they're going to select momentarily, what would you realistically not want to deal with here?
The hard question is, do you want to get rid of Diva on this map? I think that's what you're really looking at this point, because it seems like that's kind of what Hero wants to be playing. And same thing a little bit as well for AST Design. Diva was a great pick there last map for them. However, it's the Juno, and you know what? This has been, I think, a very much a sleeper pick here for just bans in general. But you have been seeing Lao exclusively play this Juno, especially last map. I believe they had 4, 5, maybe even 6 orbital arrays there. I mean, they were building those up very, very quickly. I think they would just want to try to force Lao onto that Lucio, one that I think that Ex-Oblivion really believes that if they get them off that Juno, force them onto the Lucio, you're not going to be getting as much damage. And I think that's one thing that Lao very much did that last map, as I want to look at the stats here quickly. Yeah, Lao had about almost 5,000 damage last map playing that Juno, and almost 14,000 healing, which was a big thing considering that's almost, well, they almost had about 4,000, really about 3,200 more healing than the highest healer on Ex-Oblivion that last map, playing the Juno.
Yeah, a little insane. Juno can have high output, but it's not a default thing like maybe a Mercy or a Moira or something in that regard, where you got to try hard to get those numbers up, and it's really impressive that you're in that state. But no Juno might force the doubt of something like the Kiri Lucio scenario. I imagine that's what I imagine will come through for both teams here. The question really is what the counterban is going to be coming through for the Fallen, because you have a couple of options. You could take away ASC Designs of have they banned out the Ramatra yet?
No,
I don't think they have. I think that's a realistic option. It's something you could genuinely pull down on a Runasapi and force them to go to the route of the double Diva instead, which, as they've really been shown, the Fallen tend to have an edge in that format with Hero playing it.
Yeah, and you could potentially see something like the Domina come out here as well. If you want to get rid of a certain DPS hero, do you get rid of the Tracer? I don't remember if they were the ones that banned out Tracer map 1 or not. You get rid of Vendetta just to make sure you don't really have to deal with that here. Zarya is back on the table this map, unless we see the Fallen ban out the Zarya here. There's decent amount of options here for them. They haven't really been playing anything different from what you've been playing this entire series, so it's one of those situations where me and you always talk about as a double-edged sword, where we're banning something from them, but we're also kind of banning something from us here as well. And I understand that's what the bans are, but I think you kind of understand what I'm saying with that. But still, I think you have a good idea here of what you want to ban out. And I mean, with subs, you never know. You might really see a ban come out here that might really encourage maybe some subs coming in here for either one of these teams.
Yeah, you might be able to see so. Thus far, no one's swapping around quite yet, but with 45 seconds left, you never know. We had one happen at the last second in the second map. Maybe the same thing will happen here in the third after a little bit of debate. That's why we have the time here to kind of finalize the lineups and make sure, hey, We know who we want in. We feel confident with these 5 right here. And I'm sure we'll have that conclusion in less than 30 seconds coming through here. I can't imagine that the Fallen is going to change anything up. And indeed, we are ball knowers in the chat. Ramatra banned out.
Well, yeah, I mean, the ASC Design has been kind of relying a lot on this Ramatra throughout this entire series, and just in general. We know ASC Design to be a really good tank player, especially with the Brawl tank, so you get rid of that Ramatra here, force them into something like the Zarya, if they really want to try it, maybe even the Orisa here a little bit, because you do see at least a decent amount of Orisa played on this map from time to time. And hell, we saw a little bit of Orisa earlier this evening in South America. Granted, completely different region, so there is style differences. There is style differences, I will say that. But it's going to be interesting to see now what we see come out from ASC Design. Doesn't look like we're going to see Soulsave back in, so Alex will stay in. No subs as well from the Fallen. So, unfortunately, if you guys are here for Dirt and their Hog, you're not going to be seeing that here tonight. Or, I mean, you might be seeing it here tonight, but it really all comes down to, can Exoblivione be able to get a map win under the belt and start the reverse sweep?
Yeah, that really is the question. I think I saw enough of Dirt Gaming earlier today. Had a show match between Team Poland and Team Turkey. Bro did not have fun on the Hog. Let's just say that. Did not have a good time. We'll see how.
Redemption could be right now.
It could be time for redemption at the last second sub in. We'll see what ends up happening. But again, we're just waiting on the last connection to come through here from Hero, and then we can get this thing properly started with Runa Sapi. But with the Ramatra out, what do you realistically do if you're AST Design? Because my brain immediately, again, went to, hey, we just double down on the Diva. We know it's going to be copied. You could go back down the route of a Zarya, because remember, the Vendetta is also back on the table for this map coming up. You definitely have options ready.
Yeah, you have options. I feel like Zarya is probably the most likely. Diva is probably the next one right after that. We did see ASC Design play a little bit of Domina to start off last map, and Exoblivione. I mean, they won the 1 point playing Domina for the most part. Eventually had to get off it to go over to that Ramatra that is now banned out. So I think it's probably most likely those 3. An odd one would be Jungle Queen, because this is one of the maps where you do see Queen, I think, get a decent amount more play than a lot of the other maps that's in the map pool here for Faceit Season 8 right now. But again, I'm looking at trying just, what does Exoblivione need to do here? Who needs to get going early on? It's something I always say, and I think the easy answer would be like, hey, this TPS line needs to get going. Alex and Juice, they did good last map, but Zach and Azruf, they were finding value after value after value. But I think the biggest problem really was the hero that we did see Exoblivione banned there, was the Juno. I thought Lau was doing an incredible job on the Juno that last round. I mean, like I said, I think 5 or 6 orbital rays, almost 14,000 healing. I mean, it even surprised both of us there that they almost had 4,000 healing more than the highest healer on the other side.
Yeah, definitely so. So we'll see what ends up happening. It is indeed going to be the Kyrie Lucio from both sides, but interesting. So AZ Design going back towards that Domina. Hero back on the Zarya, as well as Zach, obviously, with that Vendetta match that was banned out in the previous map. So definitely issues at hand here. AST Design has to worry very much about the positioning, because if they're caught out even a little bit, they can be burnt down quickly.
Oh, absolutely. Especially with Zach playing this Vendetta here. You know they're going to be getting the bubble from Heroes. Hero already expelling one of those bubbles onto themselves to get themselves charged up here. But a lot of Domina's abilities actually go through those bubbles to also damage the Zarya here. But Zach now going in, looking for one bubble, will get it there, but immediately just has to fall right back out. I think that's exactly what you want here if you Exoblivione early. Force the Fallen here to be the ones engaging, but ASC Design needs a lot of help.
Oh, a ton of help there. Chasing ASC Design down. Is literally just looking down, waiting for that shield to come through. Eventually, it looks like it'll be able to help out, but they're going to try to burn through it immediately once again. ASC Design has to back off it for the moment being, and already you're seeing the troubles that ASC Design and the rest of the squad is going to be dealing with for the next 9 minutes.
Yeah, another thing here, Alex is playing in this backline, and they're going to be able to find Unred right there, which is huge. This is exactly what you need. Alex is to be a backline pest here, but ASC Design still is the focal point of this team.
Yeah, but you need to capitalize now and getting ready, Hero. Well, I'll tell you what, that's definitely a good way to capitalize. Azruf keeping them in this. Zach's still in here as well, but you're in a bit of a 2v1 scenario that I don't think you're realistically getting out of. Zach is going to eventually chase Alex out, but Alex is still alive, and we'll be able to help with the retouch.
They have to get the retouch here, and honestly, you're gonna probably see a little bit of a fallback here from the Fallen, just because you're not gonna have the numbers very early on to try to contest this first or this checkpoint. You're gonna have to fall back, let the rest of the team come in, but actually, the majority of the team is back with help there from Unred. Blau almost getting taken out very early here, but still, Alex needs to be more of a pest in this backline. If they can get rid of one of these supports early on, it really does benefit their team here, but they have to play safe. Pulse Bomb already ready for them. They could be looking for something big here.
Definitely could be. See if we find anything early on here. Alex would love to catch onto someone like Azraf to kind of prevent that overclock from coming through, but Lau is just going to have a continued rush available here. And the moment they're ready, they're going to pull this trigger, and they're going to be able to take so much space. Now, Pirate now will have the response after a little bit of waiting on that, but again, they're just burning clock, and you're relatively fine with that as continued rush going to be thrown out here. Pirate eventually going to let it be sent back. Unri going to be down early, but ASC Design traded out. Is not exactly the trade I'm going for, and now you pull in multiple bodies, you clear them out, you're going to have the checkpoint coming your way. Took less than 3 minutes to do so, and that is so worthwhile.
Yeah, and the Fallen right now, I mean, they're looking great. ASC Design, they have this Panopticon ready to go. And honestly, Hunter, they could throw it out here. If they don't find the value with it and immediately die, they have to get off this Domina. I think the Zarya is just doing too much to them. I think Zach is doing too much to them as well. Domina can provide a lot of pressure, but right now they are out pressuring ASC Design on this Domina. And you're seeing just Exoblivione run into problem after problem here. Alex is not being able to find that value in the backline because they're always having to peel back towards the front line to try to help out ASC Design, who is just not putting themselves in bad spots, but just being out pressured.
Yeah, just being consistently out pressure, and there's not a whole lot you can do either. You're already at the 90-meter mark coming up here. ASC Design is just getting ran down, by the way, doesn't have the support. I genuinely think after this Panopticon use right here, I think you consider swapping, because this is not working at all.
I think you might just have to give up on the Panopticon. Really, you do. I think holding on to it is not the right thing here, especially still with 2 ultimates online here for the Fallen. Yeah, you have 2 ultimates here if you're Exoblivione, but still, it's just not working out. You're not getting that pressure that we've seen a lot of Dominos be able to just take, and that space they're able to get here. But still, you could be looking at the DPS line. Juice and Alex, they've been very quiet, other than a couple picks that Alex has been able to find in the back. That Stunning Blade, though, out from Zach, and no one's taking them out of the sky.
Yeah, they just have to hide away. No one can risk that right now. Astrov is forced into the corner, is alive momentarily, but the rest of the team is eventually going to fall over. Unri gets one on the way out, but Lau is going to get some slight staggering before being taken out here. And that's a fight when you desperately needed, but the damage has been done in masses.
And you look at the lead here, 137 to 8, 129 meters right now. Essentially, you have to complete this map here if you're Exoblivione to keep this series alive. You still have this Panopticon, but when are you going to use it? I think that's one thing. AC Design has definitely been holding on to this one. Everyone on the Fallen knows that this is available here. Alexo does have Pulse Bomb, which you could really use early on here to try to get something out from the other side, especially like that Continuing Rush. There it is, lands on the 2.
Yeah, big Panopticon, and it's going to be the perfect time for a sound barrier from Unread. And now, Azrov's going to keep running over bodies. Honestly, they have throughout the entirety of the series so far. Even more so as everyone else just has to try to back out and regroup once again.
ASC Design sticking with the Domina here. They have a lot more faith in it than both me and you. And, I mean, they are a lot better player than us, I will say that. But you look over now at Exoblivione. Juice Juice.
Yeah, not a whole lot you can do there. Hero, at the very least, is suffering and is going to stay alive again. And now AC Design is just backing out and just can't even die on the point. And now you have to have desperation touches, but everyone's dying anyway.
It's going to be rough here. I mean, you're going to see Neptune probably try to come out. It's actually going to be Juice with a touch here, but Hero going to be able to take care of them. Alex, emerges for a brief moment right there, but that will be it. I mean, Exoblivione, I thought they might have figured something out in map 1. Thought they really figured something out in map 2, but map 3 was just a little bit of a swing and a miss from them here. And, I mean, the newly named The Fallen is going to be able to keep their streak alive here. I believe now they moved to 2-0 on the season. And, I mean, you might have to start talking about them as maybe being one of those teams that a lot of people are sleeping on. But, again, very, very early on in the season.
Oh, I definitely think you got to put that in the conversation. I don't think that's an exaggeration whatsoever. That is a bit of a rough one for Oblivione, who are not having the best start to the season as I think some people may have been expecting. But that's now 2-0 for the Fallen, put themselves in a big situation. I think one of only like 5 teams that still are undefeated with at least a game under their belt, I should say.
Yeah.
But no, it's a really good display. Absolutely loving it. So we'll see how things kind of proceed onward from here. But honestly, it's a much needed win for them.
Yeah, I mean they joined Dilducks as the only teams that are 2-0 right now. Meow Academy and Element Normal are also undefeated, but have only played one game. I believe Element Normal is also playing right now, so that number might change here tonight, whether it's the number of 2-0 teams or just a number of undefeated teams here at the moment. But again, this is exactly the start you're really looking for here for the Fallen, especially as there's a lot of random chaos happening right now in this Masters tier that we're not going to talk about. But I mean, I think Dilducks being a 2-0 team, not necessarily the biggest surprise. That is a good team. Dilducks are normally able to put together really good teams, even if in non-WCS they have struggled in the past, but still they always find great players here in Masters here. I think one of the biggest surprises to me right now might be Vivacity, who is 2-1, I believe, also playing tonight. I think they're actually playing Element Normal here tonight. Yeah. So you could see one of those. You could see Element Normal stay as an undefeated team, or Vivacity go to 3-1, and I think be one of those teams that has really impressed both of us so far. I mean, we've covered 2 of their games. They've been a really fun team. Outside of that, though, still waiting on 2 teams to play their first game as we are nearing the end of week 2, and we definitely know that one of them is not playing until next Friday at the moment.
Yeah, that's a fun scenario. It's
a story for another day.
It is definitely a story for another day. We'll come to it when we come to it. But for today and honestly for the week, that's it for Faceit League games. There's a couple more going on throughout the weekend. Obviously, like tomorrow is Team Z versus Oblivione, so EXO again another tough game that they really need to go into. Element Normal faces Hivemind Sunday night. That'll be a good game. There's some games happening on Tuesday that's already been rescheduled for that. It's going to be... The weeks are going to get busier and busier as the season keeps progressing, and that's obviously on the point of everyone rescheduling their games in the first 2 weeks.
I mean, we're going to see a lot of reschedules throughout this entire season. We saw it last season as well. I mean, we already know one team, I think, already in that area where they're having a gauntlet towards the end, which is unfortunately a thing we see a lot. But still, I mean, I want to focus back in on this one. The Fallen, they look like a team that is well put together. They seem like a team that could really go up against a lot of the teams that everyone's talking about being, you know, those contenders, those heavyweights, and probably go toe-to-toe with them. I mean, this is a really good roster, and the Fallen, whether this is the Fallen org that we know from Fallen Destiny and Fallen Eclipse in South America, or this is a completely different org, this team or this org found a good team here in Masters tier, and I would be very, very excited for them. Still haven't seen a couple of their players yet this season, but I think that's a good thing. It really lets you know that they have a really deep and strong roster. Outside of that, though, if you're Oblivione, 1 and 2, not the start you were really looking for here, but you will eventually turn around. The names on that team for Oblivione are good enough to really be able just to flip the switch and look like one of the best teams here in this region. It's gonna be really fun to watch them over these next couple of weeks, even if we're not covering them, watching the other coach streamers and just watching their games back. I think they're gonna be a team that you're gonna still want to watch out for here.
Yeah, that's going to be extremely entertaining. There's a lot of amazing games that are still going to be coming up this season. We'll take them as we do. As for our schedule next week, obviously, we'll let y'all know when we figure it out ourselves. But there's some interesting games coming up here that I'm really looking forward to being able to see the results of. There was a couple that were still going on today as Wink got a win for reasons that we'll talk about probably a little later down the line. Vivacity now up 2-1 over Element Normal. We'll see where that will go from here. But hey, that's for a different day to talk about. For everyone, thank y'all for coming out here. We'll be back with another week of Faceit League after the coming weekend. So everyone, enjoy yourselves. Enjoy some OWCS. Have yourself a great time. We'll see you next time for some more Faceit League action.